Excellent. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope your lunch was filling and nutritious. And we have Catherine Crisp Martin from EY here. I love that T-shirt. I would love one of those, but I imagine the training is a lot more rigorous.
Yes.
So everyone, have a wonderful time. And we've got two sessions. Each session will last, I think, an hour. And this one's Dissolve That Debt. And then we'll figure out where everyone's at. Should we take a break and then have the second one, or should we just power right on through? So we'll check back in when this one is concluded.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. And now, if you do have questions, you can go ahead and put those in the chat box, and then I'm going to work with Todd and the rest of the team to field any questions you may have. So really, these sessions, even though they're remote, they're still interactive. And our goal is to just help you with a lot of information that can really pull together your overall financial fitness. So I like to share this and help people with whatever they're dealing with. And this is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. I've been with our EY team now a little over 10 years, but I've taught this class and these types of topics for about 15 years. And this particular topic is Dissolve That Debt. So we'll be talking about cash and debt management, and it's really an important topic for people to think about and to deal with. And personally, it's an important topic for me because it was one that I did really struggle with. So if you feel like it's kind of frustrating sometimes or a little bit hard to deal with, I always want to tell people a couple of things. First of all, you're not alone. A lot of people have dealt with this. And the other thing is there are a lot of tools and resources through the EY program that are really designed to help you figure out where you are and how to get to wherever it is you're trying to be financially. So let's go ahead and kick this off. And one of the things I love in our presentations is we also share a lot of the other resources that you have. So it's not just the EY resources, although I'm particularly fond of those for obvious reasons, but there's information on your benefits and investments. You can see that website right here. There are documents and things that can help you understand the various benefits and understand your investment funds. So that's important information. There's also the Benefits Access and benefitsaccess.org. That one, it's password protected. Of course, you can access your account information and reach out and really find a lot of great information on that website as well. And of course, the phone number there for the Benefits and Investments Call Center. So I always like to remind people of those different resources that you have. And then the other thing you have are all of these EY resources. And most importantly about all of this program is that it's offered to you through the Westpath organization, and it's all available to you at no charge. So like it's my favorite price, it's free. It's being paid for through Westpath. And so you're able to call our planner line, use the resources on our digital website. You can attend workshops that we have. So other than these specific sessions, of course, these are customized for your group. But we also have monthly webinars that we have through our website. And those are kind of general in nature, and anybody can attend those. So we have at EY about 35 corporate clients that offer these types of services to their employees. And we do offer these different webinars that you can access and sign up for through our website. So in October, we're talking about investing with taxes in mind. In December, it's Make Giving a part of your financial plan. But for those of you who are thinking about, well, I'm trying to deal with debt or what have you, in January, we had a 10-day financial wellness challenge. Now, I know you're thinking, wait a minute, it's 10 months later. How does that help me? But we actually save our webinars on our website, and you can go back and watch them on demand at your convenience. So you could go back and you could watch take the 10-day financial wellness challenge. Another one of my personal favorites they did in March is preparing your kids for financial fitness. So that's a great topic if you still got kiddos at home, or even if they aren't at home, maybe when they come visit, you could sit down and listen to that one. It's very interesting as well. But you have access to call our planner line, and the planners, they're very well familiar with your benefits. They're also specifically trained in understanding really the unique situations that might be a part of your life. If you're in the clergy, they're very familiar with that. And you can call as many times as you want to. We're open pretty long hours. It's 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we have it set up so you can call and make appointments with the same person each time. So once you find somebody you like working with, you just make appointments with that same planner. On average, they have about 7 years of financial planning experience. They work on the WestPath team, and they are very familiar with your benefits. So that's a great resource for you. And then we also have a website that has lots and lots of information, including the webinars that I was just talking about. And we have an app that you can download. So if you're really into your smartphone or your tablet, you can download an app. We actually have software on our website which will allow you to upload your expenses. So you can connect your bank account or your credit cards or whatnot to our website. It goes in there and it categorizes what your expenses are. So if you're up there trying to figure out, okay, where is this money going? There's actually a tool built into the website that can help you. So you can reach our planner line by calling their number, or you can reach them by going to the website and clicking on a link right there, and you can reach them on the app as well. So we tried to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to reach out and speak with somebody directly. I like to say at EY that we're high tech and we're high touch, which I think is great because not everybody is comfortable just reading the information online and then making sure you understand all of it. I mean, that's not your first job, really. You're doing something else in the world. So if financial planning and dealing with all of this is not something that you have dealt with very much, our team can really help you understand the different concepts and the information, and especially help you find information, because we do have so much on our website. Sometimes it gets hard to find things because there's so much, but you have access to all of this, so I just encourage you to utilize it. Now, one of the things I also encourage you while you're here with me today is to put together your very own action plan. I have to get my regular notebook. Here it is over here. I actually keep a notebook on my desk. And then when if I'm going somewhere, I have a little one I can throw in the car. I like to make notes. And so this really helps me stay on track with different financial objectives or to-dos or my grocery list, whatever I might need to do. I just have my handy notebook right here, just in case something comes up. And I would just encourage you to do the same thing. Maybe write down a few things you're going to do as a result of today's class. So think about that and create your own personal action plan throughout every one of our presentations. Throughout those presentations, we usually are going to pop up an action step here or there to encourage you to take action to get yourself in good shape. So let's jump into the topic now. You know, the biggest challenge here is we've all got this life equation, if you will. And you have different people dealing with different circumstances. So I got a chance to talk to Todd as we were getting ready today, and he was talking about his kids, and he has kids that are more involved still in his life. And I don't think I'm betraying a confidence if I say it sounds like there's still a little financial connection with those kids as well. But we're in different phases in some cases. For me, my kids are older and they have their own children. And so now I'm dealing with having grandkids and looking at doing things for them and having family get-togethers or whatnot. So we're all dealing with different things there. It might be saving for the future, for your retirement, for some specific goals that you may have. It might be legacy planning, what's going to happen if I'm no longer here. Maybe it's retirement planning, or figuring out when your retirement date is, or what you're going to do as far as your retirement spending. So it's always this balance out there between the things I need today, as well as what I'm going to need tomorrow. Now, here is the problem. Sometimes we really get out of balance. where you're dealing with so many things today. And I see that so much, especially with my kids who now have families of their own. There's so many things they're trying to take care of today, that sometimes the idea of retirement and that future seems so far off that they're not necessarily thinking about what am I going to do towards that, even though the best thing you can do is to be focused on those different things along the way. So the key there is to figure out what are those things that you need to take care of, and then how do you keep that life equation in balance for you. Financial planning ultimately is all about trade-offs and choices, and making sure that you're not necessarily focusing so much on today that you're not doing anything for tomorrow. But it works the other way as well. I've seen people and they're so good at saving and they're putting so much aside, but they're forgetting to enjoy their life while they're here at this moment. I years and years ago, one of my first office jobs, I worked with a really nice man, and he was getting ready for his retirement. And he'd been one of those people where he just focused on work and worked and worked and worked. And now he was going to be retiring, and like his retirement party was going to be that next week. He passed away before his retirement party. So I'm sure you may have heard of situations like that with people you know. So you have to have some kind of a balance where you're going to have things that are going on today that you want to enjoy, as well as saving for that financial future. So the focus here for each of us, because it's a very personal decision, is what would it take to balance your life equation, especially if for those of you, if you are feeling out of balance right now. The focus is, how do we help you get in balance? So one of the things you want to start with is you're going to prepare some financial reports. And one thing that is really important as we look at this is that for those of you, if you're married or you have that significant other, you have to meet as that team. You have to get together to have that conversation of what's important, in what order are we going to put these things, how are we going to pull this all together to make sure that you're moving the same direction financially. Because one of the biggest stresses there are for your relationships, one of the biggest stresses is having financial issues. It's a huge problem. It can hurt your health. It can hurt your mental attitude. And so you really want to make sure that you're going that same direction and that you're building a spending and savings plan that you're going to be able to achieve as that team. So let's talk about how to create that plan. It all starts with a couple of personal financial statements. And again, we have the resources at EY to help you with this process. We've got tools on the EY Navigate digital website. You can even just call the planner line and say, okay, I need to pull together these documents. Tell me how to do it. Or let me give you my information and you do it for me. Any of those will work. But ideally, what you want to do is pull these two financial statements together. So we start with the first one, which is your net worth statement. So you've got your net worth and your cash flow. And I'll tell you the difference between these. Your net worth, this is like a snapshot. It is one moment in time. Whereas your cash flow, this is really your budget. We're going to look over a continuum. Ideally, a full year is what you'll need to look at when you're talking about doing your cash flow, is really understanding exactly where all your dollars are going. But we start with your net worth. And the thing about your net worth statement, it is a snapshot as of a moment in time. Now, and this is a great time to do it because we're right here at the beginning of the fourth quarter of the year, right here in October. And sometimes some of those financial statements, they do those on a quarterly basis. So if I was going to do my net worth today, I would pull all the statements I have for these different assets as of September 30th, because you should have a quarterly statement. So your UMPIP, you should be able to get a statement for that. If you have outside IRAs or any other outside investments, you can pull up your latest monthly statement or quarterly statement, depending on how often they publish the data. But what you're looking to do is to say, at this moment in time, what does everything look like? So if I took everything I had, sold it off, so it's all cash, paid off any debts I have, what is my bottom line as far as my net worth? So that's what you're trying to get to. And then you're doing this over a period of time. So if I look at my net worth this year, then a year from now, I want to look at my net worth because I'm hoping, if I'm doing this right, that my net worth is growing. So hopefully I've added more to my retirement account. If I have my home versus what I owe on the mortgage, I've paid down some of that mortgage, so I should have more equity in my home and so on. So you're looking at all of your assets, subtracting out all of your debts. And then here is a sample net worth statement to give you an idea of what to do. And the thing about what you're doing with your net worth statement is you're really looking to see what money do I have available for my different financial goals. You know, anytime we talk about financial goals and objectives, it actually always starts with where am I right now? You always start with where am I right now? That's whether I'm trying to pay down debt or whether I'm putting money in for retirement or if I'm just saving for a big vacation next year. You always start with where am I today and what's happening with me right now. And that's what these statements can help you with. The other thing your net worth statement can do is really give you an idea of what resources might be available for the different financial goals that I have. So you can see I've got a 403B and I've got some outside IRAs. Those are individual retirement accounts. Maybe you were in a different position before and you have a 401k. That's a very similar instrument to the 403B. So you would list all those different types of assets right there at the top of the chart. Then you look at your bank account. What do you have in that? In this case, they have some certificates of deposit. That's what the CDs are. They've got the market value of their home, the car, what's that valued at, and any other assets. And so I've got my total assets, and then I'm subtracting out my debts, including some credit card debt, my car loan, as well as my mortgage. So I can see my total net worth. And then the net worth statement can help you just really understand your progress towards those financial goals. And then it can help you with your goal setting for the future as well. So one thing you can do as far as a next step is you can use our net worth calculator that's on the EY Digital website. That's going to pop up in just a moment. And just know that that's something you can use that we have on our website to help you as a tool. But when I look at this, I'm saying, okay, right there up at the top, that top money, that's for retirement, that's for the future. Maybe for the CDs, I'm planning on purchasing a boat or an RV, or I'm planning a big vacation. But you go through and you sort of figure out of the different assets I have, what do I want to do and how do I want to apply those funds? And again, you can use our website. Go there and you can use the net worth calculator. We actually have over 50 calculators, so that can be pretty fun. Now, when you look at this particular ratio right here, the debt to asset ratio, it's about 30%. So $125 are my total debts. You divide that by the $425,000, which are my total assets, and that gives you your debt to asset ratio. So ideally, you're looking for that number to be as low as possible. The next big statement, and this one is the one that I think is a little bit harder because this is where I'm figuring out what exactly is my cash flow. For every dollar I have coming in, where is it going? And so it's your cash flow, it's your income less your expenses. So also known as a budget. There's another young financial person that I have followed a little bit lately, and I like what he calls it. He calls it a conscious spending plan. And I like that. You know, it's not like it's just stuff that's happening to you. In some cases, it's our choices. And so he says, put together your conscious spending plan. So whatever it is you want to call it, the key is to get a good idea of what is happening with you and putting in all your expenses. And you should put them by type. So all your necessary expenses, housing, food, transportation, insurance needs, and certainly reminded of insurance needs when we've got, you know, these different natural events going on, like the hurricane, which hit Florida just yesterday. So and is still hitting parts of it and of the U.S. as we speak. But it's really important for you to separate the necessary from the discretionary. So necessary, all the things I need to have, discretionary, all those things that are nice to have. So I've got also a sample cash flow to show you here. So I've got my household pay. In this case, I show some dividends and some interest coming in. And then I've broken things down into necessary expenses and discretionary expenses. And then I've listed out debt repayment. I want to make sure this number is going down. Of course, taxes, I'm going to have to pay taxes. So I want to make sure that I've got that highlighted. And then how much am I putting into savings? And so in this case, we're looking through this whole situation to say we actually have an additional cash flow here across the year of about $3,000, and we can figure out where we might want that to go. And again, if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat, and we'll, if we do get some questions, we'll stop and take those questions. Now, if you don't have any questions while we're going through the information, that's fine. That happens sometimes. Just keep in mind that you can always call our planner line if you have questions on any of this information, as well as any other financial planning topics, and they'll be happy to help you with that. As I mentioned, you can choose a financial planner, or talk to one of our financial planners. And then if you like, you can make appointments with that same planner each time, which is kind of nice because then it's really your own personal phone-based planner. And you're not having to say, oh, you know, I did this and this and this, because they already know what you've worked on previously. So if you want to use the tools on our website, you can visit our digital website and use the Live by a Budget goal to analyze your spending. And of course, we also have that software that if you wanted to connect your bank account, your credit cards, and so on to our website, it will categorize your spending, kind of help you get a good idea of what's going on. So let's talk about the cash debt management process, because this really is most important if you are dealing with debt and you're trying to get yourself in a better position. Here are the steps you need to take. We're very fond of processes that have multiple steps. A lot of them have 6 steps. This one's really only 4, so it's even easier to take care of, right? But we like to just break it down so that you start to focus in and just do things one at a time. Because if you think about it as a whole concept, it can be overwhelming. But what we're saying here is, no, we just want to break it down, and we're going to cover each one of these 4 steps in more detail. But we want you to evaluate your current spending, deal with any shortfalls in debt, create a spending plan or your conscious spending plan or your budget or whatever you want to call it, and then take a step every time to review your progress. So we're going to start with step 1, evaluating your current spending. You really have to start to look at who is spending, how much, how are you spending, why are you spending, and is spending reflecting your values? I love this list because sometimes people will tell me, well, you know, what's most important is that I spend time with my family. And then you go and you look at what they're spending their money on, and there's very little of their disposable income is dedicated to any type of family activities. In fact, maybe they're doing some very solitary activities, which is fine. But then you need to figure out, well, really, what's your goal? And start looking at what is it you really want to do. So it's aligning your spending with your overall values and the things that you want to do, and really spending on where you want your money to go. So for years, I've tracked where my money goes, but it wasn't until recently, maybe in the last probably 5 or 6 years, that I started to really evaluate my spending. So tracking your spending is one thing, but evaluating your spending is basically saying, do I want to spend this amount of money in this category? Because for me, there were certain categories where I was like, no, I don't really want to spend money in that category. So I had to figure out, okay, let me back off on that, because I was putting myself in a situation where I was spending money in a situation where I really didn't want to. That wasn't something that I enjoyed doing. I kind of felt peer pressure. And so I was involved in some activities, and it was stepping back to say, do I really want to do that? No, I don't really want to. And so now I can move that money over somewhere that I really want to be involved. So let's look at some ways to manage your spending. You know, one of the hardest things to do is to just prepare that budget and be realistic and then turn around and stick to it. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of apps out there today that can help you in tracking your budget. A lot of them, they charge a fee. So what I always tell people is just figure out what will work for you and how you want to do it, and just get started doing that. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be just as easy as that same notebook that I have. If I get to a point where I'm trying to watch out where my expenses are, I might start jotting those down in my same little notebook. So figure out what you want to do and then regularly review your budget, because what you're looking for when you're looking at your spending is, are there some ways I can reduce my spending in one area and have that money available in another area? I mean, things like comparison shopping. Of course, today that's so much easier to do because we have the internet and these different apps and things. You can look things up. You can even buy things secondhand through like Facebook Marketplace and so on. So I feel like there are a lot of tools today that we have that we didn't really have previously that can help you in that area. I have to tell you, I did that this morning. I was taking, my husband actually had to go to a doctor's appointment. I was sitting out in the car, kind of going through emails. And what will happen is you'll order something online, and then all of a sudden, every week I'm getting emails from these different stores. I spent the time in the car this morning unsubscribing to a lot of those ads because they send me regular emails, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, such and such is on sale. Now, was I thinking of buying anything from Home Depot before I got that email? And the answer is no. There wasn't anything I needed around the house, but I got the email, and now suddenly I'm on the Home Depot website and I'm looking at things. And that's what I did. It's like I unsubscribed to that Home Depot because, you know what? If I need something, I can go to their website. I'm sure there's plenty of information that will help me. I don't necessarily need to be getting their ads all the time. So I will do that on a regular basis, is go through and start unsubscribing to these different emails that I don't really need to get, because in a way they're trying to encourage me to spend more money. And I don't really need, first of all, I don't need any encouragement. I think I do okay. And at the same time, I also don't want to be tempted to suddenly do something that's really over and above my budget just because it seems like such a great deal. I mean, kind of like we just got past Amazon's second like Prime days. What are they trying to do? They're trying to get us to spend money. Now, is it a good deal or not? Well, kind of depends. Did you really need that item? Had you already done your comparison shopping? Because I feel like some of those things, they kind of get me caught in that one right below that, which is avoiding impulse spending opportunities. So if you've got like an area where you're more prone to spend money, just make yourself your own self-imposed rules. I have self-imposed rules about buying kitchen gadgets because I don't really need anymore. And I have self-imposed rules about certain things where I find that I end up spending because it seems like such a great deal. And then it's something I don't really use. So you have to look at what will help you and then go ahead and implement those things in your life. One way too would be get away from using credit cards. If you find that you kind of get out of control if you're using credit cards, then make sure you're using cash or checks. Or really tracking exactly where your money's going. A friend of mine was really trying to keep an eye on her budget, and she went, and a lot of people have done this too. I think she learned it, I think it was through the Dave Ramsey program, where it was envelopes. You literally look at, okay, here's my pay. I'm going to take the money for each of these items and put it in an envelope. So she would get her pay. She would put it in an envelope by category. So here's my grocery money, and here's my money if I wanted to eat out or do something for fun, kind of my discretionary fund. And she would put it in those envelopes. And the bottom line is, as you paid for things, she then would put the receipt in that envelope so she'd have a good idea of where the money went. And it was a great way to do it, because if I'm going to buy groceries and it's near the end of the month and I open that envelope, if it's empty, well, it's not that there's an unlimited supply. It's really, what other envelope am I going to take money out of? Am I going to take it from my discretionary fund? Am I going to take it from my savings? I mean, I hope not. I'll tell you, there were times in the past where I did. And so you've got to figure out where that money's going to go. And then you just figure out what's going to work for you. If your issue is you go to the ATM, you get cash, and then a minute later, you don't know where that money went. One of the things I really try to do, because I do keep cash on me, I'm a little old school. I'm always teasing my kids about that. They go places and they never have any cash, but I always have cash on me in case I need it. But if I use my cash, I also collect a receipt, or I have a little piece of paper I keep in my little wallet so I can make a note of what did I spend that on. So I know, was it groceries? Was it eating out? What did I do with that? So you have a good idea of really what's going on with your spending. And then from there, you look for ways to save. This is kind of nuts when you look at this, but you really can save so much money just by making little choices. So I just want to remind people of that. If you're saying, well, I'm going to dine in versus eating out, I don't mean never go out. I'm saying if you currently go out 3 nights a week, go out 1 night a week or 2 nights a week. I have a family friend and they still go out to dinner. The rule that they implemented is they no longer buy soft drinks or drinks of any kind. Everybody drinks water because water is included at the restaurants. So it's my coworker, his wife, and their 3 daughters, and they all drink water. And they calculated that they're saving about $25 a week because they go out twice a week. But they like to do that because he and his wife both work. It gives them a great opportunity to really bond with the girls, with everybody having a good time, relaxing, going somewhere they enjoy, but they no longer have those soft drinks. And now that $25 a week, my coworker turned around and he's putting it into his 401k. So you could do that, put it in your 403b, put it in your savings or wherever you want it to go, so that money is starting to build up for a different financial goal. And if you're looking at that, so they're saving, I would go with they're saving about $180 a month. I'll just pick that one at random. So if he puts that in his 401k or 403b, gets about a 7% return on his investment. After 30 years, they've saved over $18,000. So it's really a powerful message that you can make small changes here or there that can really have a big reward long term. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. And we've got other tools on our website that can help you as well. So consider using the notebook method. I mean, I would say do whatever works for you, whether it's a notebook, whether it's using an app, whether it's putting the money in an envelope and then paying for things with cash, whatever works for you. I suggest that's what you should do because that's going to help you in the long run. So figure out how you're going to track your expenses and really get started with that process. So all of that was under our category of evaluating your spending. The next section is dealing with shortfalls and debt. I hit forward too soon. You need to look really at what's going on. This is the moment where I always find, to me, if you're dealing with debt right here, this is the most painful part of the process because you just got to figure out what's going on. What type of debt are you in? How much debt? How much is that costing you? And then what is your ability to manage that debt? So this is the painful part where you got to kind of rip off the Band-Aid and figure out what's happening with you. And it's so important to do that because you've got fees that can be accumulating, especially late fees, which are horrendous. Like I already don't have the money and then I miss a payment and now they're going to charge $35. So you've got to make sure you've got fees under control. Look at what you're paying in interest. And of course, there's negative credit consequences. I mean, if you were right in a position where you needed to buy a car or a house, something that has a long-term impact like that, you're going to get the best possible interest rate if you've got the very best possible credit rating. But if you've got a lot of debt, or if you're not paying things on time, then your credit rating is going to be reflecting that. And then ultimately, you'll pay more long-term than somebody who's managing that. And the one thing I do always highlight is right here on that chart, and that's the stress. The mental stress and the stress on your relationship can be very difficult to deal with if you're having to deal with stress. And can be frustrating if you're living paycheck to paycheck. So it's really just a recognition of how important it is if you are dealing with this to go ahead and figure out how to deal with it. And just a reminder, how much does it fully cost? Does it really cost? So you buy that 4K Ultra HD TV, and of course, it was interesting to me because I kept reading some of the little articles that were saying the best deals on Prime, and about 50% of them were electronic stuff. And for me personally, I just don't need any of that stuff right now. It's not on my list. I don't need it. The stuff we have works. So I was not interested in purchasing it, but it was so amazing to me to just see ad after ad after ad for all these different fancy, yeah, they're better than what I have. They're newer than what I have. They're nicer than what I have. And here's me not caring. I'm like, yeah, don't need it. Don't want it. Not in the budget. Not going to go there. But some people, they get all caught up by that. And then they turn around and they're saying, oh my gosh, it's such a great deal. It was only $1,500. All I have to do is pay $60 a month on this credit card at an 18% interest rate. It will take 32 months. I was like, almost 3 years, right? And I will have paid $1,920 to pay that off. A $1,500 TV, an additional $420 just because I put that on a credit card. So you really have to look at what's going on, what's causing you to get in debt. And for me, having gone through this, my husband and I went through this. We not only went through it once, unfortunately, we went through it twice. We got in debt one time, we worked our way out, and then sure enough, some number of years later, it was probably 10 years later, here we were again, and I was struggling with debt. My husband and I were both struggling with debt, and we're like, this is crazy. We have to figure out what we're doing here. And our biggest problem, what we hadn't done, is we didn't have an emergency fund. And I don't know what it is about credit cards, but somehow once I would get a little bit of credit debt, it didn't bother me to add to that credit debt, which I'm thinking now it should have. And that's how I got into debt again that second time. So the second time we got out of debt, and I am so happy to say that all these years later, it's probably been 15 years now, that has not been the picture at all. And I've even gone back to a position now where I will pay with credit cards. I have credit cards that pay rewards. I will pay with credit cards, but every single month, those credit cards have to get paid off. Otherwise, to me, it's not worth the great value that the points or the rewards that card is going to pay. It's not worth it if I'm also having to pay them additional money for that item I purchased. So you figure out what you want to do. And I will tell you, there were years I just wouldn't use the credit cards at all because I was worried about running back into that same situation. So little by little, I got to a point where now I feel comfortable with it, but I still monitor my credit cards. As a matter of fact, with most of my bills, like my utilities and housing and all that kind of stuff, almost all of my bills, I pay those automatically. I've got them set up for auto pay. And the exception is credit cards. I don't allow my credit cards to auto pay. I'm sure they would like me to, but every month I want to look at what did I put on here? What category does it fall into? Was that really in my budget or not? Because I don't want that to get out of control. So I just have to look at a couple of bills each month more closely than the others because I have to physically reach out and make the arrangements to make those payments. So again, you always focus on what's important to you, but look at exactly what's happening with you and debt. And then there's really two kinds. Some might be tax deductible. A lot of it depends on whether you're able to deduct your taxes because you're itemizing your deductions. For a lot of folks, just because the standard deduction and what it is, unless you are supporting kids or have other circumstances, a lot of us may not be able to do that because you're using the standard deductions. But these are the types of expenses that are typically considered tax deductible. And then, of course, non-tax deductible, there would be your consumer debt if you've got credit card debt. So the focus here is if you do have that, what can you do? Can you convert it to a lower rate where you're paying lower percentages on those credit cards? Or can you consolidate somehow to a lower payment? So how can you manage the debt? One would be looking at consolidating that debt if possible. Now, the only thing to keep in mind is if you consolidate, especially if you did like a balance transfer on a credit card, they do charge a fee for that. So you also want to focus on what percentage are they charging for me to be able to do that? Or if you have some money set aside for savings, maybe you'll make a decision to use that to pay off your debt. Some people focus on paying off the highest interest rate that they have because overall they're looking to pay out less money. But there are other ways to look at this as well. So it's not just looking at the lowest interest rate. You might instead want to focus on the credit card or the debt that has the highest monthly payment. If I could pay that one off, I could then use that higher amount to pay off my additional debts. or you look at the one with the lowest balance, because the nice part about doing that is you get that feeling of accomplishment from getting rid of one of those things. Also, make sure if you're borrowing in the future that you're borrowing wisely and you do what you can to manage your credit score. I'm going to talk about your credit score more in just a moment. And most importantly, because here was where I got kind of sideways, most importantly is you establish an emergency fund so that when something happens, almost like not if, it's going to happen at some point, you're going to have that unexpected expense that just wasn't a part of your budget. You know, your air conditioning at your house, it doesn't always wait until it's nice and cool to break down. The heating doesn't wait until it's nice and toasty, and so on. And so you want that emergency fund so that you don't end up having to get into debt. Any questions? All right, I'm going to keep moving. All right, but definitely establish an emergency fund. And one more thing to think about. Well, you know what? I'm going to bring this. I'll bring something up on the next slide. So here's an example of doing debt consolidation. And so we're talking, when you do a list, if you've got multiple credit cards, you want to do a complete list that shows exactly what you owe, what the interest rate is, what your minimum monthly payments are, how many months would it take you to pay that off. So overall, you're just looking at your overall financial situation. And so in this case, the total credit cards, I've got monthly minimum payments of $300 a month. It'll take overall 32 months to pay everything off. And you're trying to, see what you can do to get rid of that. If you're in a situation where you can do like a home equity line of credit, this might be an option. Now, even today, though, that 6%, that was done at a time of much lower interest rates. So keep in mind that that's not necessarily going to be 6% that you're going to be able to find for a home equity line of credit today. These loans are much more expensive just because the underlying mortgage rates are much higher. But they might still be a lot less expensive than what you're paying on the credit cards. So just do a comparison if you're looking at something like that. One more thing you can consider over here, along with, doing, say, a balance transfer, would be looking at a personal loan. There are personal loans you can get that are unsecured, and they're typically kind of earmarked for people who are looking to do debt reduction like this. So you can look for personal loans, but I will tell you, I helped a family member do this probably about 6 months or so. And she was able to get an interest rate of about 14%. Now, 14% may seem high, but the credit card debt she was paying off was 19% and higher. So she was able to save some money. Plus those personal loans, you're paying an amount designed to be able to get that thing completely paid off within, say, a 3-year period or a 2.5-year period, and so on. So that's something you might want to look at. I'll tell you 2 websites you can look at that will give you a good comparison of debt consolidation interest rates. They also have good comparisons of credit card rewards and credit card programs. The 2 websites are bankrate.com. It's bank, RATE.com, and the other one is called NerdWallet, N-E-R-D, nerdwallet.com. Both of them are kind of financial education websites, and they have some good resources to help you comparison shop if this is your situation. You also can go to our EY Navigate Digital website and use the personal debt consolidation calculator. So after the minimums, what do you pay next? And that's where you start to focus in on to say, okay, well, maybe what I want to do is focus on that higher credit card balance, the higher interest rate, so that you start to pay that off. Now, it's really important for you to also monitor your credit score. They don't automatically give you your credit score, but credit cards will give it to you at no charge. Your bank account may give it to you at no charge. And then there are 2 websites where you can sign up and they will provide your credit score at no charge. One of them is called Credit Karma. It's Karma. And there's another one called Credit Sesame. and they will provide your credit score. But they look at these 5 different areas when they determine your credit score. Of course, the 2 biggest are going to be your payment history. So you don't want late payments because that will really hurt you. And the amount you owe. When they look at the amount you owe, they actually look at the amount you owe in total and by credit card. So let's say I have 4 credit cards and I owe nothing on 3 of them. And on one of them, I owe like 80% of what my credit limit is on that card. I would actually have a better credit score if instead of 80% of that limit, if I would spread that same debt over 2 or 3 cards so that the percentage I owe on each card is lower. So if I only owe 30% of what the credit limit was for 3 cards, as opposed to 80% on 1 card, I would have a better credit score than that person that's just putting it on the 1 credit card. So that's one of the things that you can look at, is recognizing that they look at it as a whole. So they're looking at your total available credit and how much are you using. And then they look at it by card as well. So ways to manage your credit score, we've got some suggestions on that. You want to make sure you obtain and review your credit reports on a regular basis and always dispute any errors, because they do make errors on those. It's totally up to you to make sure those get resolved. Make sure you make your payments on time and manage the available credit that you have. So if I'm getting really close to being, say, over 50% on one of my cards, I'd really be better off if I would put this next expenditure on a different card. Even though I'm paying them off, in my case, I'm paying them off every month. Even if you're paying them off every month, you still want to do that, because the different agencies, there's 3 different agencies, and they sort of sweep your data at different times of the month. So there's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. They sweep at different times. So for one of those, they might think I have debt because they did the sweep before I paid my bill, but I'll be paying my bills tomorrow. I pay right around the 10th, 11th of the month every month. So anybody sweeps, like right now, I've got debt, but if they sweep on Tuesday of next week, I'm looking really good because I've just paid everything off. So try to manage the available credit that you have, keeping that in mind, and then minimize that ratio of what you're using compared to your available credit. If you've got long running accounts, if you close those, that can really hurt you. I made a financial decision earlier this year. We closed an account which we'd had since 1984, and I don't have any other card that I've had that long. But we made the decision because it turns out it was an Amex and it was pretty expensive, and we were never using that card any longer. So I went ahead and I closed it, knowing that the immediate impact is that our credit score would go down. But then since then, it's built back up because all of the other data looks good. So think about that. If you've got a really long running account, you want to make sure you have that one. You might need to keep it open. I had one credit card recently, and I've had it for a long time, and they said, if you don't charge anything in the next 3 months, we're closing this card. So what did I do? I went and purchased something and then turned around and paid them off. So now I'm probably good for another 3 years before they force me to use their card again. But I like the fact that it's got a high credit limit. And so overall, it makes my financial picture look better, even though I'm not using any of that particular card. And most importantly, the credit card is free. So I'm not paying a fee for that one as well. And then minimize new credit. If you pull out a lot of credit at a time, like if I open several accounts at one time, that's going to push your credit score down. Also utilize different types of credit. If your credit score is low, one of the things that can really help you, it can help you to finance a car, which it seems crazy, like, oh, I need more debt. But financing a car, because that's a totally different type of credit, and if you're paying that on time, it can really boost your credit score. So the key here is to visit annualcreditreport.com. If you ever try to get your free credit score or your free credit report and they try to charge you, you're probably on the wrong website. So make sure you're at annualcreditreport.com. You can get a report from all 3 of these agencies at no charge. It used to be you could get it once a year, but during COVID, they switched it to you can get a report weekly, and I think it's still weekly. So there's no reason not to keep checking that information and then figure out where you'll get access to your free credit score. whether it's your bank or using Credit Sesame or Credit Karma. If you do have student loan debt, the key there is to make sure you've created a plan to pay that off. And you can visit studentaid.gov for more information and for calculators about repaying your debt and repayment options. And I always kind of gloss over that one a little just because I figure at this point, whoever does have student debt, hopefully they're dealing with it. But I don't really spend as much time talking about it. But if you do have student debt and you're trying to deal with that, you can always call our planner line because they get those questions all the time and they're happy to help you review that process and figure out what you might want to do. Most importantly, make sure you build up that emergency fund. You should have 3 to 6 months of your necessary expenses and have them somewhere accessible, whether it's in a checking account, a savings account. It needs to be something that's liquid and very stable. And this is going to help you from having unnecessary borrowing on credit in case of an emergency. Personally, I keep my emergency fund in an online bank account. If you're not familiar with those, if you go to bankrate.com or NerdWallet, they'll also tell you the online banks that have the best interest rates right now. But as an example, my brick and mortar bank on my savings account, my husband has a savings account there, and they're paying him 0.01% on his savings, 0.01%. Like every month or so, we get like 1 or 2 pennies, and you're like, what is that? It's like, oh, interest. But meanwhile, I keep our emergency savings and another savings account. I keep them in an online bank. It's currently paying 4%. That's 4.0. Now, it's paid as low as 0.5% in the past when interest rates were super low, but still it's paying 0.5% when the bank is again paying 0.01%. So that's something you might want to look at. I helped my aunt and my cousins earlier this year. They just had their money at a brick and mortar bank, and one of them was getting, I think she got like $15 last year on her bank account, $15. This year, I think she's up to about $700. So you can definitely get a lot more interest, especially if you've got some money in there, if you look at something like that. And even better, if you're willing to lock it in for a period of time, you could look at those certificates of deposit, because one of my cousins has started to put her money into CDs as well. And then overall, you want to create a spending plan. You're looking to minimize your taxes and have what we like to call shrewd spending. We're going to look at what that means in just a moment. And then do what you can to increase your savings and make sure you're using debt wisely. So how do you minimize taxes? Do everything you can with the resources that you do have. You could put money into your UMPIP on a pre-tax basis, or of course you could put it into a Roth account. There's also the parsonage and housing designation for the clergy, and there are flexible spending accounts, health reimbursement accounts, health savings accounts. So there's different programs which will allow you to save on those taxes. And really the key is to just use those wisely to minimize your taxes. This is a great time of year too, because a lot of times you're going to be looking at your elections for your benefits for that next year. So if you don't understand how some of these programs work, that would be a great conversation to have with one of the EY financial planners. And then we encourage you to use shrewd spending. I have definitely moved to shrewd spending. So you start with Shift. First of all, it's not an unlimited resource, that money. So if I take money and I spend a lot of it in any one category, it might mean I'm having to shift it from somewhere else. So I really do think of that money as one pot. I'm going to have to move it from one place to another. Or you just halt and say, you know what, I'm not going to do any spending this month or this quarter. Restructure what you do have. Look at how you're paying for things and make sure you're doing the best you can for your financial situation. The other one is exchange. Think about the way you purchase things. You can purchase used items. You can purchase refurbished items and save a lot of money. I am the queen of refurbished and used. It doesn't bother me that somebody used this before I got it. I have a refurbished printer that's going on being 10 years old, and it works great. And meanwhile, I saved like 50% for the price of that printer. So it was a great investment. You know, in some cases, it's just a matter of just waiting. I'm just going to wait for that particular investment or wait for that particular purchase. And then overall trying to decrease what you're putting out as far as your spending. And then don't forget about putting money on a pre-tax basis or an after-tax basis. If you're saving within your UMPIP, this is just a great example of the savings you can achieve, because if you're saving on a before-tax basis, you're also not having to pay the FICA taxes or the SECA taxes if you're in the clergy, so you can really save a bit more money. And then don't forget about the fact that you can contribute either before or after into your UMPIP, but most importantly, the money is going to grow tax deferred. And I think that's what's most important when we talk about these types of accounts. And so for my action step here, you can always call our planner line to discuss which types of contributions might be best for you. So as far as borrowing options and using debt wisely, you can talk about your home mortgage, but your home is the collateral. Same thing with a home equity loan. With student loans, some of this might be tax deductible, so you can look at that. With personal loans, they're unsecured, and the interest rates are typically high, but they're often a lot less than what the credit cards are charging you. So if you can get rid of higher interest rate debt that you have on a credit card, it might be worth looking at that personal loan. Credit cards, of course, the loan is unsecured, but the interest rates are typically very high. And then if you have some cash value life insurance, you can look at taking loans from that. The risk there is that there's less for your survivors until it's repaid. And of course, with your retirement savings plans, you are able to take loans from those, but there are still risks involved as well. And then our most important step here is to review your progress. So review your expenses monthly and annually. Look at your financial goals to see if they've stayed the same or if they've changed. Are you on track with your spending? Make sure you factor in inflation and look at overall at your tax situation. And then what I'd like to say is that this is really just a list of several different things you can do as far as action items. I would just encourage you, if you didn't write anything down, maybe pick a couple of things from this list to follow up on. And if you'd like to give us feedback on this class and what you thought about it, you can text this number, and the code you're going to need when you get there, the code is 43301. So that's the class code for this particular class. It's 43301. All right, I didn't leave a lot of time for questions, but hopefully if we have any, well, if we don't get to your question on this one, we can certainly take it during the next one.
Yeah, Catherine, I don't see that we have any questions typed out in the chat feature yet.
All right. Yeah, well, a lot of it is pretty self-explanatory. And the other good news is you can call and talk to our planner line, and you can get so much more information because you can share more information with them to begin with. So I would just encourage you to check that out and to utilize the resources that you do have through this WestPath program by being able to use the resources on our website, as well as being able to call and talk to our planner line. All right, well, I didn't leave a lot of time. I guess let me know, did you guys want to maybe take a few minutes break before we get started with the next topic, or I can go right into it? You tell me what we should do.
What do you think, everyone? Thumbs up if you want to continue, or a thumbs down if you'd like to take a little bit of a break in between. One thumbs up, which would be to continue.
Continue.
Looks like a couple thumbs. Okay, I think we can continue.
All right, well, let me go ahead. I'm going to close out this presentation, and I'm going to open up our next presentation, another subject near and dear to my heart. and that is Social Security and your retirement. I love this course. We're going to talk a bit about Social Security and give you some background information on how the program works. But the other thing we have in here is also a 6-step process for really calculating what your retirement needs are going to be. So you're going to see some of those same reports we talk about in dissolving your debt. Overall, the bottom line is they're just really a good idea to put together. So let's get started with that. And again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat box. And I promise I'll allow some time for questions this time. I just get so excited talking about this stuff. Let's go ahead and we're going to get started with this here. Hold on, let me see. Okay, great. I've got all my screens that I need to see in front of me. Excellent. All right, so let's talk about Social Security and your retirement. So again, don't forget about your tools and resources. I just talked about those in the last class. You've got access to benefits and investments, your benefits access information, of course, the phone number, and a reminder about all the tools that are a part of the EY resources as well. Of course, most importantly, one of my favorite things is the fact that all of these resources are available for you for absolutely free. You can call and have appointments with our planner line. They can help you in their planning process. You know, our planners, they are financial planners and they really think of you as their client. Their focus is helping you get in a good place financially. So give it a try, give them a call. I had a conversation one time with one of our lead planners and I said, what's the worst question you've ever had on the planner line? And he said, the worst question was, I've just done this. What are the implications? Well, sometimes what that person had just done, my son-in-law actually did this. Don't tell him I told you. Of course, you don't know him, so you probably won't be able to tell him, but just in case you run into him somewhere, somehow, someday. But he left an employer and they said, oh, well, do you want to just cash this money out of your 401k? And he's like 32 at the time. And he said, yes. And he did. And so now it's like 6 months later and I'm talking to my daughter and she's telling me what he did. And I'm like, you're going to have a huge tax bill. And yes, in fact, they did have a huge tax bill. So that's how our planners are. They're like, no, don't do that. The best question is, I'm thinking of doing this. What are the implications? So we've got a verified resource you can talk to help you be in a good situation financially. So keep that in mind. And don't forget about your personal action plan. Put that together, especially as I go into this next section, because I'm going to talk about the retirement planning process. So if you haven't started this process yet, it is a great time to do it. I am semi-retired now. I work for EY. And other than that, I have hobbies and classes and different things that I do to keep myself busy, keep my husband busy, and just enjoying our lives. So I've definitely gone through this, and I went through it the very first time. I think the first time I did it, it was about 7 years before I stopped. I hadn't even thought about the timing before, but it would have been right around like 2008. So like the first time I started to do that retirement planning was 2008. And I'm telling you, at the time, I had no clue when I was actually going to retire. And I'll tell you, I should have done it sooner, but I didn't because I was so worried that once I did it, I would find out I could never, ever retire. But I did it in about 2008. And I was pleasantly surprised because even though I didn't have enough that I could like stop thinking about it at all, I still had to do some more saving and some more planning. But I was in better shape than I thought. And it got me in a different frame of mind about my money because now, you know, I've already talked about the fact that it's kind of a trade-off. You're shifting from one bucket to another, if you will, when you're spending that money. Now what I realized is sometimes things I'm paying for today, they might be taking away for something that could be happening in the future. So I got more of a world view of my money, if you will, a life cycle view of my money. And so I started being a little bit better and being a little bit more fiscally frugal, I like to say, in some areas once I took that point of view. So really encourage you to do that. So we start with really understanding what your goals are financially. And I'm telling you, this is the fun part. When you start to figure out what do I want to do with my time, that starts to get fun. So we're going to look at the at the different steps first, and then we'll go into them in some more detail. So what are your goals? What will you need? What will you have? Is there a gap? If so, what do you do and how can you stay on track? I always laugh at this slide because the first time I started to learn how to teach this material, I thought retirement planning started with step 3. I did. I thought, oh, well, okay, well, what will I have? And let me figure out how to stretch that to make it last the rest of my life and to do the things I want to do. But it really starts with the very first step. The very first step is, what are your goals? So this is the fun part. When will you retire? What will you do in retirement? So now is when you get to sort of paint that picture. If you're somebody who's very creative, maybe you want to do your own vision board. If you've never done that, it's kind of fun. The things you want to do. So like maybe you want to take up more golf or take up golf because you never had time for it before. Maybe you want to learn how to do quilting. One of the things I really thought I wanted to do, I thought I wanted to learn how to crochet. I know how to knit, I know how to sew. I thought, oh, crocheting sounds fun. So I fulfilled that dream this year. I signed up for a crocheting class only to find out I don't like crocheting at all. I like it. It's a whole bunch of math and it's so easy to get it wrong. And then you're constantly pulling things out to try and fix them. All it was for me was an exercise in frustration. So it was like, I don't really have to crochet to be happy in life. So at least I know I tried it. It's really not for me. And I think for a lot of people, you may find that in retirement, you're going to try things out and say, I thought I'd like this, but it's not nearly as fun as I thought I would, as far as spending my time. So you get to decide, what do you think you want to do? And figure out what your retirement goals are. Again, if you're married, if your significant other is involved or other family members, that's that time to see what's happening with them too. Maybe one of the things you want to do is take trips with your other family members. And so you're going to need to, do some coordinating and scheduling and all that fun kind of stuff. So figure out, first of all, what your goals are. Then you get into what will you need? Because this is your opportunity to say some things might cost a little more. Like for me, crocheting didn't end up costing too much. I had to pay a $10 fee for the class. I actually ended up with a couple of things left over that I can use for other projects, so I've held on to them. And other than that, it was just a little bit of my time to find out that it turns out that's not the favorite thing for me to do. And so really the question is, what will you need each year? So if you do have a hobby which costs some additional funds, what are you going to add to your budget? And then you've got to think about how long you're going to live. You want your money to last as long as you do. And then make sure inflation is factored in. Years ago, I've been talking about inflation for like 15 years, but I will tell you, years ago, people were not listening to me because inflation had been so low for so long that folks kind of forgot inflation could get bad. Now, the good news, we just got a report. I think today I saw a blurb that said inflation's gone down again. But of course, we had another catastrophic weather event. So I have a sneaking suspicion that when I get my homeowner insurance renewal, it's not going to look very pretty because they're going to have to be paying to fix a lot of different areas from these different storms and whatnot. So you factor in inflation, and that's going to cover things like that, where some things are going down, some things are going up, and some things are going to go up much higher than expected. And overall, hopefully you've got that built into your plan. So make sure you factored in inflation. Also, will you have any one-time expenses, any first-time expenses for retirement? So what will you have there? And then you start to figure out where you are right now. So just like I started with on the other slide, we've got to figure out your cash flow. Now, in this case, I've just kept it simple and I've made it all as a percentage, but every decision financially starts with, where am I today? So here's where I am today, but you can see I just have it in percentages because I'm going to use that same cash flow statement that hopefully helps you get past any debt issues you might have. That same cash flow statement can help you figure out where can you free up money so you can start to put more towards your future savings for your retirement. And that same cash flow is going to help you figure out what your needs are in retirement. So I just add another column for that to say, what am I going to need? Because what I'm developing when I do this, it's called a replacement ratio. Some people think, well, I just need 100% of what I have today in order to live in retirement. But the reality is you don't necessarily need 100% because some things go away. Well, first of all, I'm saving today towards retirement, right? When you retire, now you're really more managing your money. There's no active savings component. So I was saving 8% before, now I'm saving 0. I'm just managing the money I had saved previously. Also, if I'm not working at all, then there's no FICA or SECA taxes. I know if I've got clergy, you're paying the self-employed taxes. Instead, it's double the amount, but those amounts will go down. So right away, you can see I've got 15% less, even without making any changes to my budget. Now, if you go down into my budget, I have made some changes. I've got less going to transportation and commuting. I've got less going to income taxes. You know, our tax system is progressive. The more you make, the more they take. I have a couple of tax laws and they're really easy to remember. That's one of them. And the other one is equally important, if not more so. The other one is sooner or later. That's actually all you need to know about federal taxes. Sooner or later, you have to pay them. So you look at what it is you're taking out. Have you paid money on that in taxes? Then you're going to have to pay it when you take it out. So you think of your UMPIP. If I put everything in pre-tax, when it comes out in the future, it's now later, I have to pay taxes on it. But if I put it into the Roth account, I already paid the taxes up front. When that money comes out, I won't have to pay taxes. So keep that in mind. Sooner or later, you do have to pay those federal taxes. And then state taxes are going to depend on the state you live in and what they will charge. So you start with your cash flow, and that's going to help you determine what you need and overall what your replacement ratio will be. So really my action step for you here is determine your personal replacement ratio. Now we look at that lovely thing called inflation. How will that affect you? Well, right now, if you're making $50,000, inflation's not necessarily impacting your purchasing power today because you've got that money coming in, you're turning around and you're spending that. But assuming inflation has an annual rate of about 3%, every 24 years, the cost of goods and services is going to double. So at 52, you now need 100,000. At age 76, you need 200,000. And at age 100, you need $400,000. Although I would argue not necessarily, because having had a couple of family members that were in their late 90s, their spending changed pretty dramatically. So I would say they didn't end up needing 400,000, but this is kind of an extreme, illustration of what potentially could happen if you're paying for those same goods and services. I've always made the joke that once you're in your 80s, there is a mandatory age where if you are going out to dinner, you do have to go out at 4:00 so you can get the early bird special. But which is pretty funny because my husband and I, if we do go out to dinner, we go out really early because we like to beat the crowds. And they do have specials sometimes where you get a discount on the different things that you're buying. It's like you're going to spend that same money and you can save $5 or $6 because there's a special in place. I am all for discounts. So keep in mind, you might remember the rule of 72 from back when you were in school. You take 72 and you divide it by your interest rate. In this case, if my inflation rate is 3%, that tells me that every 24 years, the price of those goods and services is going to double. Now, they're not all going to double equally, as we've seen, because years ago, I think about what I paid for like my first computer. I think my most recent computer, I paid less than what I paid for my very first computer back in like 1986, because technology has changed and the price of those different components has gone down. But I'm pretty sure when it comes time to do my homeowner's insurance, that one is going to jump up. So keep in mind that those different things are going to happen. And now we get to where I thought we were going to start with, and that is, my screen went blank there for a second. Is what will you have? So that's where you start to look at what are your income sources. Now, for this particular class, we talk about all three of your potential income sources, but we're really only going to look at one of those, and we're going to look at Social Security. So we're going to do a little bit of a dive into Social Security to help you understand how they do the calculation and how they're coming up with that number that they're going to pay you for Social Security. But when you're doing this on your own, when you're looking at your retirement, I want to make sure you look at everything. So you want to make sure you're looking at your WestPath benefits. If you're eligible for a pension or several different pensions through WestPath, you want to make sure you do an estimate of those. If you have your own outside individual retirement account, you want to make sure you've got that information at your fingertips. Don't forget your UMPIP. That's a part of your WestPath benefits. So as you go through all of this calculation, you're pulling in all those different pieces. And if you're married or have a significant other, you might be doing that same amounts for you and for your person. So keep all of that in mind. So today we're going to focus in on Social Security. So just need to talk a little bit about an update on the safety and future of Social Security. Every year, Social Security does do a full, what they call a valuation of the program. They have actuaries on their staff that they go in there and they do a valuation. And usually somewhere around late July or August, you will see an update on the latest and greatest information from Social Security. So last year, they said that if they change nothing, they've got enough money to last until 2034. And when they get to 2034, good news, they're not out of money, but they can only pay about 77% of the benefits that are promised. So that's the 2023 report. That was that update. The August 2024 report says that now the money will last one more year at 100%. It's going to last until 2035. And at that point, they'll have enough to pay 83% of the benefits. So in that 1 year, with what's happening in the economy, the money that they have to pay out those benefits got a little bit better. So that's the latest projection. The bottom line, though, is that in order for Social Security to be secure in the long term, our lawmakers really do need to make changes in order to kind of shore the program up. So what I always tell everybody in my class is I need you to pay attention because our lawmakers do not like to take away benefits from people who are paying attention and who will vote them out of office. So you want to pay attention so that you can then let your representatives know if they're looking at a solution which might take away your benefits. So definitely pay attention. And of course, Social Security can be a very important benefit, but it doesn't pay 100%. So if you're thinking, wow, okay, my replacement ratio is 85%, yay, Social Security, how will you help me? So here's my question of the day. What percentage of income does Social Security replace if you wait until your full retirement age for someone with an estimated annual salary right now of $63,000? So I'll give you a second to think about that. And the survey says it will replace 41% of that $63,000. Now, 41%, that's great, but that's certainly not the 85% I might need to live on. And so that's why it's really important that you think about what you're saving and look for ways to save additional money. That's why my coworker decided his family wasn't going to drink soft drinks any longer when they went out to restaurants, because he's now able to save that additional amount of money into his 401k, which is saving for his overall financial future for he and his spouse. So something to think about. Now let's look at Social Security and how it's funded. It depends on whether you're clergy or you're in the lay staff as to how the benefit is being collected. Because if you're clergy, you fall into this unique area where for some purposes you're an employee and for some purposes you're considered self-employed. And it turns out that for Social Security and Medicare taxes, you fall under the SECA rules, which it's I'm going to totally forget. Oh, it's the Self-Employed Contribution Act. FICA is the Federal Income Contribution Act, and SECA is the Self-Employed Contribution Act. So if you're clergy, you fall into SECA. If you're lay personnel, you fall into FICA. The difference is the folks in the clergy, you're paying both halves, both the employer and the employee half. You get a tax deduction on half of what you put in because you're paying the employer half. But if you're a lay person, then the church is paying the other half of that. And the same thing would be if you worked in the private sector at a regular corporation, you would be paying your 6.2% for Social Security. That organization would pay the other 6.2. You would pay 1.45 for Medicare. That other organization would pay the other half. Whereas if you're clergy, it's 12.4% and you're paying 2.9% for Medicare. So this is just showing you how it's all calculated. I just saw somebody's cat is trying to actually get into the presentation. I appreciate that on that cat. What a cutie. I got a little distracted. It's like, is that a kitty cat? It looked like a gray tabby. Anyway, so this is how they're collecting all of the money in order to pay out those benefits. Of course, the 6.2 or 12.4, that's what's going to pay for those Social Security benefits. And the issue come 2035 is the fact that we're going to have so many more people collecting benefits compared to the number of people who are still working and paying into the system. So that's a little bit of the conundrum that's going on and why they need to look at it. So we'll have to wait and see what they decide to do. But let me show you how they actually calculate your benefits. So what they do is each one of these numbers you're going to see in this calculation, these are adjusted annually based on inflation. So in 2024, it's very specific because they use a totally different number in 2023. So in 2024, it's 90% of your first $1,174. Back in 2023, they only went up to $1,115. So now it's $1,174 because of inflation. And then they do 32% of those next dollars going up to $7,078 in total for the month. And then they do 15% of anything over the $7,078. Now, in order to do the calculation to even start with, they look at your highest 35 years of earnings. So they take your highest 35 years. Now, let's say you've only been in the workforce for 25 years. It's 25 years with 10 years of zeros. So you're always better off if you have some earnings as opposed to nothing. For me, I've actually been working part-time for EY since 2016 is when I left my full-time job. In the end of 2015, I started to only work for EY in 2016. And one thing I didn't think about or calculate when I did all my calculations, which you think I should have because I do this stuff all the time, but because I've been working for EY, my Social Security benefit has actually been growing because even though I'm working on a very part-time basis, it's replacing earnings from 35 years ago when I made a lot less money. And so displacing some of those much older, smaller earnings has actually improved my benefits. So continuing to work in retirement is not necessarily a bad thing. It can help your Social Security benefits. So that's something I actually found out when it happened. So they're going to take that 35 years, they gross everything up. Basically, they push it all up for inflation. And then they just divide by 35 by 12 months. And they come up with your indexed monthly earnings. So they bump them up for inflation and they come up with a monthly number. Once they get that monthly number, then they calculate by these numbers and they call these bend points. So they got the first bend point, which is at 1174. The second bend point goes up to 7,078. And then that final one is on every dollar after that over your 7,078 and you get 15%. And there is a maximum benefit. And so the primary insurance amount is what they calculate. This year's maximum benefit. And the reason there's a maximum is that Social Security doesn't, it's not an unlimited amount that they'll take. Every year they have a Social Security earnings maximum. And so somebody could be out there. I mean, you think of, I'll just pick a famous actor. I'm going to pick Julia Roberts today. Julia Roberts on one movie, she could make $5 million. Well, they're going to take their FICA taxes, but they're only going to take it up to this year's annual maximum, which is like $168,000. So they're only going to take that 6.2 or the 12.4 if she's considered self-employed, but they're only going to take it until they hit that $168,000, which is the annual cap that they set. They don't take anything over and above that amount. And so that's why we show there's a maximum benefit. If you made all the way up to the wage maximum every year, the very highest benefit you could possibly get in 2024 is $38.22. The average benefit is $19.07. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how they do the calculation. Very creative, just like the government. Let's come up with something really, really complicated in order to calculate your benefit. And then Social Security, they changed the retirement ages. So here's kind of an insight in what the government will do sometimes. Prior to 1983, everybody's full retirement age, the age where you got 100% of your money with Social Security, everybody's full age was 65. Everybody. That was everybody's full retirement age up until 1983. And if you took your money at 62, you would get 80% of whatever the amount was. And then it gradually went up until from 62 to 65, it went up. So every month that you waited, you got a little bit more money until you got 100% when you hit 65. But in 1983, when they first made changes to the program, they changed our full retirement age. So for a lot of people today, the highest current full retirement age is age 67. So you might be somewhere in between that 65 or 67, but currently the highest age is 67. But you can still collect your benefits as early as age 62. Now, a lot of people think of it as though they're separate opportunities to sort of step through and collect Social Security. Like, okay, I could do it at 62, or I could do it when I turn my full age, or if I wait until I'm 70, they'll give me even more. But it's not really that rigid. It's really an 8-year window. Once you get to 62, technically that opportunity to now go through and collect Social Security has opened. It will be its maximum amount when you get to age 70. So if you wait, every month you wait to step through that window, you'll get more money from Social Security. If you take it at 62 and your full age is 67, you'll get 70%. If you wait until you're 63, 64, 65, 66, basically every year and month you wait up till you're 67, you're going to get a little bit more money. If you wait until 67, you'll get 100%. If you wait 3 more years until you're 70, you get 124%. So every year you wait, a full year you wait, you get 8% more money. So that's something to think about with Social Security, is if you want to delay your benefits. And then Social Security, it pays worker benefits, but it also pays benefits to a spouse. So I've got Dan and Kathy. Dan is the worker. Kathy is the spouse. We're going to assume that Dan's full benefit from Social Security at his full retirement age is $1,000. And Kathy, if she waits until her full retirement age, so it's based on the worker's amount, but the spouse's age. Because for my husband and I, we fell into different parts of that chart. So his age was earlier than my age, but I'd have to wait until I reached that age. And so in this case, Kathy, his spouse, she has her own worker benefit where she would get $500 from Social Security. But if she is her full retirement age and she takes instead her spousal benefit, she can get $500 because that's based on Dan's worker benefit. And basically, she can get the greater of the two. Now, that works unless Kathy was a teacher or Kathy worked for a government agency that did not pay into Social Security, in which case she may not be able to collect a spousal benefit. So if you're in that situation, make sure you understand those rules. There are 2 potential takeaways from your benefit. One of them is that teacher or government situation where you didn't pay in. It's called the government pension offset. The other is if I did pay into Social Security and then went and worked on my own somewhere that didn't pay in, there's another offset that's called the windfall elimination provision. Both of those 2, or one or the other, could actually hurt your ability to get spousal benefits or to get survivor's benefits. So it's just important to understand those programs and that there are these special provisions. Now, our planner line, they know all this stuff backwards and frontwards and sideways, and they can help you understand that. So there's a lot of resources out there that can help you if you fall into that specific situation. So this might help because in order for Kathy to collect as a spouse, Dan has to be collecting. So let's say Dan is still working. He doesn't want to collect yet, but Kathy is able to, and she can get $500 from her own worker benefit. She can go ahead and do that. And then when Dan decides to stop working and collect Social Security, Kathy can now take 50% of his benefits. So she can get the greater of the two. They will go back and they'll make changes in that situation. So that's how the spouse benefits work. And Social Security also pays benefits to an ex-spouse as long as you were married for a minimum of 10 years. So you could collect from that ex-spouse based on their work history, but on your age, if the benefit is greater than your worker benefits. So they'll pay you the greater of the two. There are also survivor benefits. There's a one-time lump sum of $255, not very much, but I had somebody do the calculations in class looking backward at inflation, and it turns out, first of all, Social Security was introduced in 1935, and it turns out $255 would actually pay for a burial in 1935. Today, it will not pay for hardly anything. I mean, no, you really won't pay for much. So, and they make it surprisingly hard to get. I have a friend whose husband died in December of this past year. She still does not have her $255 yet. She's going to have to make an appointment and go in there and show some documentation and whatnot. But they will pay you $255, and it only gets paid to the spouse of the person. But it also pays survivors benefits, so definitely a more valuable benefit. Basically, the worker can now receive 100% of what the spouse can now receive 100% of what the worker was receiving. So back to my friends Dan and Kathy, and Dan's getting 1,000 and Kathy's getting 500. When Dan passes away, Kathy can now collect the 1,000 that Dan was receiving. So as a household, they were getting 1,500. Now they're getting 1,000, but at least she gets that higher amount that Dan was receiving. You do need to be married at least 9 months prior to death. There are some exceptions. And the rule also applies for a divorced spouse. They qualify. They did have to be married for 10 years and not remarried. I just realized that slide says unmarried and it should say remarried. So hold on a second. It's like, oh, I can't tell you how many times I've talked about this slide, and I didn't notice that it said that. It's actually fine because you do have to be unmarried at the time. So I'm going to leave it alone. I see what they mean. I personally would have said remarried. So it suddenly struck me as very strange. All right, moving right along. I hope I haven't confused anybody. I confused myself there for a minute. All right, so Social Security, it used to be that Social Security, if you continue to work, they would take back your benefits, and they take back part of your benefits all the way until age 70, but they did make some changes to that. So here's what you do have to watch out for. If you are continuing to work, now this is what's important about this slide. You have to be making earned income. So this is not money from your UMPIP. This is not money from your retirement plans. This would be money from employment or self-employment. Those are considered earned income. So it's not getting dividends or interest or any of those things. But if you have earned income, so I'm sitting here right now, I'm making earned income from my fabulous team at Ernst & Young. And if it is over a certain amount at the same time I'm collecting Social Security, they will start taking back my benefits because it's meant to be a retirement benefit. And their thing is, well, look, Catherine, if you're going to make too much, you must not need the money. So this year for 2024, these numbers are indexed. Every year they go up. So every $2 that I make over $22,320. So if I make $22,322 this year and I'm collecting Social Security, I would have to pay back $1 because I made $22,322. So every $2, I'd have to pay back $1. Interesting, once you stop working, at some point, they eventually pay it back to you. I'm like, I don't know why they do it that way, but they do. And then the year you turn your full retirement age, it's a $3. They look at every $3 over a much higher limit. You can see the limit this year is $59,520. For every $3 over that, they'll take back $1 of your benefits. And once you get to your full retirement age, there is no reduction regardless of your earnings. So you can be working and you can be collecting Social Security. They will not take back your benefits. However, they will tax them. So this chart is very interesting because this line right here, hold on, I'm going to get my little laser pointer. This first line right here, they put this one in place in 1983. So right around the same time they changed the full retirement age, they also added the fact that they're going to charge you taxes on a part of your money. So these two lines went into place in 1983. Up to 50% of your Social Security became taxable. And then in 1993, there was another tax law that passed that added this second line. So now for people today, up to 85% of your Social Security is subject to ordinary income taxes, or as I like to say, you get a minimum of 15% tax-free. So they did make those changes a number of years ago for the benefits, and so they may be taxable, but you can get a minimum of 15% tax-free. Oh, one more thing that I forgot to mention. Hold on. I need to back up, and I'm having technical difficulties here. What am I doing? I want to go previous. There we go. Nope. I still need to go back another slide here. All right. The other thing I wanted to mention here is that unfortunately, this table is not indexed. So every year you have to pay more money because of the benefits going up and so on, because Social Security does go up with inflation. In 2023, people got a 3.2% raise. In 2022, and actually the 2023 raise that applies for benefits in 2024. And then for benefits in 2023, people got an 8.7% increase. So Social Security does go up. But there were a number of years of 2016 or 2015, they got no increase. 2016, there was like a 0.3% increase. So they will look at what's happening with inflation and so on. And potentially adjust your benefits for Social Security. The best way to get information on Social Security is go to the website, and you can sign up at the website. They can give you what your benefits are. They'll show you different permutations. And you can even download a copy of the report that they used to mail out. And you can plan for retirement. You can actually apply for your benefits online as well. So go to ssa.gov. You can obtain your statement, review your earnings record, and estimate your earnings. Oh, hold on. Okay, great. I just figured out how to turn it off. I had turned on my laser pointer and I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. I was like, uh-oh. They sent me a new computer and it has different controls than the old one did. So you're learning with me today. So thank you for your patience. All right, so this is just an idea or an example of that statement they used to mail out. It shows you what your benefits would be at your full retirement age, what they are at age 70, what they are at 62, and then shows some of the other benefits, because Social Security doesn't just pay worker benefits. It pays spouse benefits, it pays survivor benefits, it pays benefits to your children. I still think back to when my husband first collected Social Security benefits. He decided to take his benefits at age 62, which I'm just thought about that. It's like, that was a while ago. And at that time, we had a child who was under 18. He actually got his very own Social Security benefit for a couple of months before he turned 18. At the same time, my husband was collecting Social Security. So if you have younger children, Social Security would pay a benefit to the child in the household as well. So something to keep in mind. Not a good reason to go like acquire a lot more children, because they're way more expensive than what Social Security pays, but it's just good to know all the different benefits. Now, the other program that Social Security does the administration for is Medicare. And we often have courses where we talk about what we call the ABCDs of Medicare. We did that in July of this year. So if you're interested in learning more about Medicare, you can go onto our website, to the EY Digital Navigate website. You can go to where we house our webinars, and you can look at the one we held in July, which was Learn the ABC and Ds of Medicare. But let me give you a little overview right here. Part A, that 2.9% or 1.45% that you're currently paying with your each pay period, that's paying for Part A. So most people don't pay a separate premium for Part A, and that pays for everything administered in the hospital. But it doesn't pay the doctors. You know, all the doctors bill separately, and the doctors are paid through Part B. That provides doctor's coverage in and out of the hospital. That provides all of your outpatient care. And if you are already on Social Security when you get to age 65, because Medicare enrollment happens at 65, those ages didn't change for Medicare. But if you're already collecting Social Security when you get to 65, they actually automatically enroll you in Medicare. Now, if you aren't automatically enrolled, if you're not in Social Security yet, then you do need to enroll in Medicare when you're eligible. Typically, you don't have to enroll in Medicare until you are retired. Prior to you being retired, your employer, your plans, your medical plans through WestPath are considered to be a large employer plan. So you don't have to go on Medicare because Medicare is not primary for you until you retire. So once you're retired, though, you would need to go on Medicare, and you'd either choose Medicare, original Medicare, which is Medicare Parts A plus B, or you can look at Medicare Part C, which is called Medicare Advantage plans, which are the managed plans. They have PPOs and HMOs and so on, where you have to use that network, and you sometimes have to get services pre-certified and so on. So a lot of us are familiar with those types of plans, but that's what the Medicare Part C plans are. So Medicare Part B, you do have to pay a premium. So initially you can enroll in A plus B. Once you do, if you then decide you also prefer to be in a Medicare Advantage plan, you can sign up for that Medicare Advantage plan or Part C plan. And what ends up happening is that premium you're paying for Part B, that actually goes to the plan you sign up for. And so my husband's he's in an Aetna Medicare Advantage plan through his prior employer. And so he pays the premium, but the money goes over to Aetna to pay for their program. But then he does have to go to their network and follow their rules and whatnot for the program. But we get some additional services that aren't included in Medicare A or B. If you're in traditional Medicare, though, because a lot of Medicare Part C plans, I almost forgot to mention this, a lot of Medicare Part C plans, they actually include prescription drugs, and they don't charge an additional premium for them. If you're in Medicare A plus B, you do need to look at a Medicare D plan, D as in drugs, because that pays for outpatient prescription drugs. And as many of you know, I mean, for a lot of people, you spend more on things like prescription drugs than you do on other types of medical care, just based on whatever your overall medical conditions are. The best place to find information, though, on Medicare is to look at Medicare.gov website to learn more. Those Medicare Part C plans, they're very dependent on where you live. I live in Central Texas. I used to live in the Houston area. If I moved back to Texas, to Houston, Texas, I would actually have to potentially change to a different Medicare Advantage plan, because certain plans are offered here in this area that aren't offered there, and vice versa. So now what we've done is you've looked at what are your goals, what will you need. We've talked a lot more detail about Social Security as far as what you'll have. But of course, when you're doing this planning, you want to also look at what you have as far as your personal resources, as well as your resources coming from WestPath. And then what you want to do is figure out, how do your goals and income sources compare? So let's look at some tools that can help you. There's a couple of different tools you can use. One of those is on the EY Navigate digital website. There's also a tool in the benefits that are offered through WestPath that can help you as well, where you can get, I think it's called a retirement readiness report. So you can do that as well. And get an idea of what your benefits would be. This one is through the EY Navigate digital website. So you'll go to our website, and this top band right here, this is actually showing you what the top of our website looks like. You see the EY and with a little slash over it, and you'll see my goals and finances. So what I did is I went to the website, I went to my goals and finances, and then I picked the plan for retirement goal. So that's what you'll do. And you can all, at that point, just follow the prompts, like what's your age that you plan on retiring, what's your savings rate, what's the annual income required. So that's when you're going to need your replacement ratio. So you use these little sliders, and it can help you understand what your overall needs will be and how long your money will last. And so I can tell at a glance that this plan is not giving me enough to last the rest of my life, because it's red. Once I get it moved over enough that I'm saving enough, or that I'm spending less, or that I'm working a little bit longer. So you work with those different little sliders. And once it pops into the green, you'll know, okay, great, there's enough money there now that will last me the rest of my life. So that's how we've got that design. So that's how you figure out if there's a gap. And if there is a gap, what should you do? Well, you can save more, you can work longer, live on less, or choose to do an alternate asset allocation for the investments that you have. Maybe get a little bit more aggressive in how you're investing your money. Or you can do any combination of these. When I first looked at this, as I mentioned, it was around 2008. I didn't have enough for retirement. So one of the things I did at that time is I really bumped up how much I was putting into my 401k. I was in a private company, so it was a 401k. So I bumped up how much I was putting in my 401k. And then in the end, I also decided that I was going to do this other type of arrangement where I ended up working longer. So instead of working a full-time job now, I have my job with EY. I call it my part-time job. I always have to say 3 parts there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to work another, let's see, 3 days for the rest of the year. So yeah, it's not too difficult. I'm quite grateful and thankful and blessed to be able to have this arrangement. And so I'm just going to do a few more classes and meetings this year, and then I'll be done for the year. But for me, I get that additional income, and it helped with my Social Security as well. So you just have to figure out what might work for you. The other thing I also did for my husband and I is we focused on living on less. We started that before retirement. And then we downsized our housing because now we're paying a lot less for our heating and our cooling with a smaller house. And what I love is the fact that today in my house, I use probably 85% of my house, like every day. I go in every one of those rooms and I use them. I don't have any rooms that nobody goes into. And previously we had a bigger house because we'd had a couple of kids and whatnot. And a lot of the house wasn't getting used, but meanwhile, we were heating and cooling the whole thing. So you figure out what will work for you and then start to look at what should you do. So what should you do? Well, if you don't have enough, you can think about saving more by cutting your expenses. Plan on spending less in retirement. Maybe you postpone retirement, work a couple of more years, or you find another thing to do where maybe you're working part-time or doing something else that you enjoy. And then another way would be to adjust your assets so that you are looking at a greater return on your assets. Now, what if you realize, wow, I've got more than enough? Also double check your assumptions. Are they reasonable? Review them annually and make sure you've included everything. And, one thing would be, well, you know what? If you can live on that lower amount, why don't you get started now? Basically, stress test your results. One of the most important things that you should do, though, is stay on track. This is something I actually do every single year, every year. I don't know what happens in January. I guess I'm tired from the holidays, so I never do it in January, but I always do it in February. What I do is I sit down, I go back and I look at sort of my year in review, almost my state of the union of our household. And I look at what were my expenses? What were the categories? Did I go over my budget? If so, why? Was there a good reason? Was there a category that was problematic for me that I want to focus on this year? And so you do this at least annually or when changes occur. And then make sure you're implementing an appropriate savings and investment plan for your long term, because your goals can change for your savings and the things you want to do. So you want to go back and you want to look at that. And then don't forget about all the tools that can help you with all of this. So I've talked about the planner line, the digital website resources. You can download the app on your smartphone or your tablet. You can take classes that we have online on the EY website. And you can also go back and look at the webinar replays. I looked recently, what was the one I looked at recently? Oh, it was the 10 mistakes to avoid in retirement. We did that one in June. I just went through that course recently to kind of go back through, because I always learn additional information that I can include when I'm talking to people the first time I'm presenting it. So I was looking at the 10 mistakes to avoid in retirement. You can watch that replay on our website. We did that one in June. And then just know that our planner line can help you a variety of ways. They can help you decide when to commence Social Security. They can help you understand Social Security benefits and how to maximize what you're going to receive. And they can look at your retirement goals and your income needs and really help you kind of work on your plan or finesse your plan or just get a free second opinion on whatever plan you put together. The one thing I want to tell you about doing retirement planning that I do think is very important, this is not some pretty report that you put it all together and you put it in a binder and you stick it on a shelf. I've got all my WestPath stuff right here. So it's not like this. It's not like something and then you turn around and you just stick it on a shelf, never to be looked at again. Your retirement goals and planning and whatnot, it really is sort of this living, breathing thing where you have to make changes and make adjustments, see how you're doing according to your plan, and kind of give yourself your own little checkup every single year, or if you have any major changes that happen. So if you were impacted by some of these storms or whatnot, you'd have to be doing some sort of a review right now. Like, what are you going to need and whatnot? I mean, I think of those folks like in Asheville, North Carolina, who would have thought that could impact them like that. But definitely they're going to have to do an overall review to see where are they financially and what will that do to their long-term plans, just to make sure that ultimately they get back on track. So you can call the planner line. You can see the number right there. You can also reach our planners by going through the website or by going through our app. So lots of resources are available right there on the website. We also have a lot of short videos, and we organize things not only by topic, but by life event. So topic and life event. And we have our app, which I mentioned. So as you look at all of this, I hope that you wrote down a couple of things you're going to do as a result of attending today's workshop. If not, here's some ideas. You can use the Social Security Retirement Estimator. That's at ssa.gov. You can use the Plan for Retirement Goal. That's at westpath.eynavigate.com. Only takes 2 minutes to sign up and start using your resources. So lots of ways you can kind of get on track and get in a good place with your financial wellness. I've been focused lately on physical wellness, so I've kind of got wellness in my mind. But it's just as important to focus on your physical wellness and your financial wellness. So I encourage you to do both. Kind of been on a mission to do a little bit more and be a little bit more active these days. So that's a good goal to have as well. And then if you'd like to give us feedback on the course, this particular class, the code for this one is 43302. It's 43302. So that's for today's course. All you need to do is to this number, you're going to text workshop WestPath. So it's WKSP space WestPath, and you'll get the evaluation, and they'll ask for the course number, the workshop number, and that's the official workshop number, 43302. The one we did earlier was 43301. And let me know if you have any questions. And then assuming you don't forget, you can always call our planner line or go to the resources on the EY Navigate digital website.
Catherine, there are some questions that came up.
Okay.
So one of the questions is, if you receive the decreased spouse's Social Security income, does that mean you don't collect your own if it is a lesser?
Right, you don't collect your own. So if my own benefit, kind of like Kathy, if Kathy's benefit is 400, but Dan's benefit is 500, she only gets one or the other. You get the greater of the two.
Okay. And then the question came about, and does parsonage fair rental apply, or is it only cash?
Oh, does it apply as earned income? I guess I'm not sure about the question.
For you, Bruce?
If you're retired, serving a church in retirement, you're allowed to make up to $22,320. Does that include your fair rental value, or is it just what you get paid?
That is a great question. I have to tell you that I'm not positive. I swear I've asked the question before, but I know if you call our planner line, they know for sure. So I'm going to make my own personal note, because I don't know if the parsonage amount.
Because as pastors, one of the best things we get is the parsonage provided and utilities paid. So I wonder,
Right,
if you do that in
right.
retirement, what of that has to be included under that $22,320?
Well, here's my question. Do you pay those SECA taxes on the parsonage money?
Yes, you do.
Unfortunately, if you're paying SECA taxes, then I'm going to guess that it's considered earned income. You only have to pay FICA or SECA on earned income. So unfortunately, by the fact that you're paying the SECA taxes on the parsonage, that tells me that that's going to be included. Yeah, so I'm sorry.
Thank you.
About that. You're welcome.
Another question was, one of the clergy, their spouse, has a job in church pension. And so they're wondering how they can integrate that into the calculations to estimate their combined retirement income. So do they have to run them separately, or can they run them separately and then combine them themselves? Or does EY work with United Church of Christ as well?
Well, I don't believe we work with, I don't know if that's a client or not, quite frankly, only because I only know the clients I work on. But our planners can help you integrate any earnings. So the fact that if that is or isn't a client is not important.
So when you work with EY, you can bring outside, like if you have outside investments, you can bring them in and they can work with both of those combined.
Our planners can work with every dollar you have coming in. It's not only related to Westpath. So I think that's the most important answer to the question. It doesn't matter, even if my spouse's employer is not an EY client, it doesn't matter. If I'm talking to my EY planner, I can say, oh, my spouse gets this much in a pension and gets this much for their savings and so on. They will integrate all of the numbers. It doesn't matter where the money came from.
Okay. And then Marty, were you just making a statement about your receiving money from Social Security, or did you have a specific question about that?
No,
just a statement that he received it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was over 18, but I was getting money while I was a college student because my dad had retired while I was in college. So
okay.
Once I stopped being a student, he got more money.
They did used to do that, but now they'll only pay the kids' benefits until age 18, or they'll pay till 19 if they're still in high school, but they'll only pay through high school. Yeah, so they cut that back at some point. But it is funny. The best part for me is that my son has no idea that money came. But he cost me way more than what Social Security gave us, so I think we're good. Yeah, he never saw that. He never had any inkling there was any extra money because of him, nor will he ever. I'm like, mum's the word here.
That's awesome. Well, does anybody have any other questions? No? Well, are you good with taking a break and coming back at, say, 3:10? And then we'll finish up the rest of this. It'll give us like just about 10, not 12 minutes to take a break, use the restroom, and I can make some coffee.
All right.
Awesome.
Well,
all right. I'll see everybody at 3:10. And Catherine, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
My work here is done, but don't forget, you can always call our planner line. So I really encourage you to do that, to use the resources. They love to help you out. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
Well, in one more minute, we will get started with Medicare. I know that Catherine was already talking about Medicare Part A and Part B and Part C, and so I just want to talk a little bit about Medigap and then the other plans that there are. It'll take us a lot less time now. Thank you, Catherine. That was awesome. I appreciate that she did that, but we'll kind of go over all this here in just a minute, cover that, and if you guys have questions, please just feel free to, holler it out. I'm not pretty informal here, so my first time running through this. You guys are my guinea pigs, so hopefully if you do have questions, you'll ask me, and hopefully I'll have the answers. If not, I know where to go to get them. So, and that would be Todd. Just kidding. All right, well, it's 3:10. I'm going to go ahead and start. Can you guys see my screen? Perfect. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and start right here. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Medicare plans that are out there, and then the VIA benefits, which is if you are with HealthFlex, you will be able to get into VIA benefits, and then HealthFlex and retirement for those that are not quite 65 and still want to be on HealthFlex, and their spouse might be able to be on the VIA benefits. So first of all, I'm going to just skip over part A and part B because we've already talked about that with Catherine. If you do have questions about any of that, feel free to call me or talk to EY, or go to the website that she suggested, just because we can actually help you with those plans, and VIA benefits can too. But as far as Medicare supplement insurance, there is a Medigap plan, and one of the types of Medigap here is it works with original Medicare. So, and it fills the gap. So original Medicare is part A and part B, and it fills that gap coverage. They do not bundle coverage, so you'll need a separate prescription plan to cover your drugs. Well, this means that you will be dealing with two plans and possibly two insurance companies. It also means that you have the freedom to choose separately the medical and the drug plans that each fit your personal healthcare needs. So if your healthcare doesn't fit into this specific plan, you can choose the Medigap, and it'll help you standardize that to you what you need. Plans have no networks. The Medigap plans, they don't have any networks, so that you can see any doctor or go to any facility in the United States that accepts patients with original Medicare. There are a few Medigap plans that are labeled select plans. Select Medigap plans may have a defined network, but the premiums for the Medigap plans are usually higher than Medicare Advantage plans. So just keep that in mind. But you have lower out-of-pocket costs once you start using this plan. If you choose a Medigap plan, you may be asked to pay the first month's premium at the time of enrollment. There's probably about 86% of our participants that are enrolled through VIA benefits have a Medicare supplemental coverage, and sometimes it's the Medigap plan. So it's an opportunity to use something that you can use anywhere and not have to worry about being in network. Medigap plans have simple single letter names in most states, like Medigap Plan G, Medigap Plan L. There are up to 10 different standardized Medigap plans and offer varying levels of coverage. For example, if you look at the Medigap Plan G, after you pay the monthly premium and the Part B deductible, the Plan G will pay for 100% of the remainder of your Part A and Part B medical costs for the rest of the year. And Medigap plans, they'll be offered through different insurance companies, but the plan will work the same. So regardless of which company you select, that is a plan. L from one insurance company will cover Medicare the same way as a Plan L from another insurance company would. The difference in the Medigap plans from one insurance company to another is usually the cost of the premium, as they each set their own premium prices for their Medigap plans. So a bargain price doesn't always mean less coverage, but it just means that it's going to be less that you pay out. So all plans cover 100% of the Medicare preventive care for Part B coinsurance. So it's covered completely. Medicare Part D, the prescription drug plan that she was talking about, prescription drugs available and required of all people eligible for Medicare and offered through private insurance companies. If you choose to not enroll immediately, there is a penalty that is calculated by multiplying 1% of the national base beneficiary premium by the number of months you were eligible but didn't enroll. And the penalty is then rounded to the nearest 10 cents and added to your monthly Part D premium. So say in 24, the national base premium beneficiary premium is $34.70 a month. So the monthly penalty is $4.90. And that penalty can increase each year as the base average premium increases. So you can avoid the penalty by signing up for Part D during your initial enrollment period and staying enrolled consistently. So you can just do it right away and you'll be done with it. The thing about Medicare prescription drugs, let's talk about that a little bit more. There's different drugs, prescription drug plans, whether they're standalone Part D plans or bundled into a Medicare Advantage plan. And that was the two different ones. Part D is just drugs, and then there's an Advantage plan. And they have some of the same basic structure, but they can vary widely in which drugs they cover and what they charge for those drugs. So when you're making that choice and choosing that prescription drug plan, a very personal choice, because people take a different set of drugs than someone else. So you'll want to make sure that you're looking at what drugs you're taking. And a lot of times when you talk to Via Benefits, if you have your prescription drugs in front of you, they'll help you figure out if you should be in a Part D plan or if you should be in an Advantage plan. And then Medicare separates prescription drugs coverage into 4 coverage levels that you can potentially reach during the year. So first comes the deductible level, which you can range anywhere from $0 up to $545 for that cost. And then the second level, which is called the initial coverage level. In this level, you'll pay a set copay depending upon the tier level that the medication has the medication has been assigned by the insurance company. So if they assign that medication as a higher, then you'd pay a higher copay. If it's lower, then you may not have a copay. If the full cost of the drugs you purchase during the year reaches $5,030, then you move to the third level. And that is called the coverage gap, or we call it the donut hole. This happens to about 1 in 4 Medicare enrollees. If you reach this level, you'll pay a percentage of the retail cost of the drugs, for example, 25% for brand name and generic drugs. And most of those will enter the coverage gap level and will remain there for the rest of the year. But your insurance company is required to keep track of one more thing called your true out-of-pocket cost. So the true out-of-pocket cost is a combination of what you have spent on your drugs from the first of the year and the manufacturer's discounts while you were in the coverage gap. If that combined total reaches $8,000, then you will be transitioned to the fourth level, which is called the catastrophic coverage. And the average basic monthly premium for standard Medicare D is approximately $34.70. So currently it changes from year to year. So that's pretty much what I have for your Medicare. She covered A and B in the first one, so I just kind of wanted to cover the other options you have. Does anybody have any questions on those?
I don't know if this is, you were saying something about a penalty. That's only if you're completely retired, not while you're still working, right?
Correct. If you're retired and you go into Medicare Part A and Part B, and then you don't choose it.
Okay, but just A, we're good until we totally retire. Okay.
Yep, Marty?
Yeah, I'd heard that in 2025, they were lowering it to $2,000 and there wasn't any more donut hole anymore on Medicare D.
Well, that's a good question. Leanna and I, when we were researching all of this, because we were putting the slides together, we didn't come across that, but that's something that I can definitely look into and see if I can find out for you, Marty.
I've heard it on all the rhetoric around the campaigns.
Okay, so we'll have to wait and see after November 3rd.
No, I think it's already decided.
Okay, I'll check into that and make sure there's no catastrophic.
So I thought they lowered it from the 5,000 to the 2,000 if you're in Medicare.
Okay.
But that's why I'm asking the question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll find out, and then I will send out an email to all of you guys to let you know what I find out, if that's okay.
So if my husband is 65 but still working and takes the normal health insurance, he should be signing up for Medicare A. Does that go for a spouse as well? For me too?
How old are you?
I'll be 65 in January, so I get there before Keith.
You can sign up for for the medical part A with him, and then you'll have it, but you don't have, if he's still working, you don't have to do the rest of it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it applied to me as well as him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can you speak to the health savings account? You're not supposed to contribute to that if you're on or close to Medicare, right?
Correct. If you are going to be 6 months prior, so if you have a health savings account, you don't want to contribute to that 6 months prior to you being retired, and because if you do, then you have a penalty. If you don't, so what has happened is, because we've had somebody that was actually contributing to the health savings account, then they retired, and then they had to go back and pay taxes on that money that they put into their health savings account, because it actually was brought in as income.
So is that only if they're actually retired, or if they're on that Medicare A but still working?
You can still do it. You can contribute to that. It's when you retire. If you don't, 6 months before you actually retire.
Okay.
So those of us that are retiring July 1st of this next year, then we need to stop in January 1st, is what you're saying.
Yep.
Okay. And so how do we do that? I mean, how do we stop? Is there a form
contributing? Yeah. So you can, if you're retiring July 1st, what you can do is just stop and not add that to when you go into your health flex.
Oh, okay.
And not put any money into that HSA.
Okay.
But you can still spend out of that HSA. So if you have funds in there, even in retirement, you can still spend out of your HSA. You just can't contribute in 6 months prior.
That stays there. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So we do that during enrollment time.
Yeah.
Yep.
If we're putting in an FSA, whatever that is, different flexible spending account, we can still contribute that before taxes.
You sure can. Yep.
But we should use it up before we retire.
Yep. Yep. Exactly, Marty. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the HSA, because it's a savings account, and just the HSA is the one that you want to make sure you're not contributing to 6 months prior to retirement. And if you're retiring, say at the end of the year, you can just let me know and we can go in and change it with WestPath, put in new paperwork to take and stop that for you. So good questions. Any more? Okay, well, I'm going to talk about VIA benefits, if that's okay. So VIA benefits, they're like one of the nation's oldest and largest Medicare marketplace for healthcare solutions. And for Medicare eligible individuals, VIA benefits insurance services work as a kind of a portal providing access to many insurance carriers to help retirees find the appropriate plan, both on cost and benefits for current and future medical needs. So this is all they do. They're licensed, certified benefit advisors. And so they are there to answer any of your questions. They're responsible for objectively helping you select the correct plan for you. They're salaried and receive no commission. So their only motivation is to connect you with the correct plan that's going to service you best and be the most cost effective for you in the long run. All of their services are free. And as long as you're on VIA benefits, you can use them anytime you want and ask any questions you want. VIA benefits been around for roughly 20 years, and they've been trusted by over 1,000 plus employers to help more than over 2 million of their retiree plans shop, enroll, and maintain healthy coverage that fits each individual needs. As of 1/1/25, there are 32 annual conferences that participate with VIA benefits to help their retirees find the right medical supplement or Medicare Advantage plan. Among the retirees from our conference with VIA benefits, as of January of 24, there was 103 with different plans selected and 30 different carriers. So as you can see, there's a lot of options out there, and VIA benefits houses them all. So they have the knowledge of what is best for you because they can see it all. As you can see, there's also a list of top 5 medical and prescription carriers for the conference. Humana, AARP, right now, I think like Sanford is not doing the Advantage plan right now anymore. So if you're with Humana, that might change if you have the Advantage plan. If you don't, if you have the supplemental plan, then you could still use Humana. But there's all different options out there. And then there's also like the top 5 drug plans that are out there for you to use. So having access to these products available in the open marketplace allows for you and your spouse to choose products based on your needs and your costs that you want to be met. What time plans do they offer? Well, they have 3 different types of plans. And so now they have the Medicare supplemental plan, which is the Medigap plan. Medigap, like I said, is no networks. You can see any provider who takes Medicare, original Medicare. The Medicare Advantage plan, they're tied to a PPO and an HMO, similar to a Health Flex plan that people are currently on now. The Medicare Part D, which is just a prescription plan, you'll need to purchase a separate Medicare Part D plan when you get a Medicare supplemental plan. Whereas some Advantage plans, you will often not need to purchase an extra prescription plan. So you would not have to do the medical Part D. There's also dental and visual plans available. Hospital indemnity insurance supplements exist for health insurance coverage by helping pay expenses for hospital stays. So that's kind of a good fit, I guess, for retirees who select a high deductible Medicare Advantage with prescription drug plan. It provides a financial safety net for hospital expenses incurred before the Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan is met, the deductible is met. So the dental, vision, and hearing insurance is also known as DVH plans. They actually combine all 3 benefits into a single plan, and they don't have to network. So there's guaranteed issues as far as they provide access to services such as routine dental cleanings, hearing exam, and aids. And so you can get regular eye exams, classes, and so much more if you have the DVH plan. So VIA benefits will send out packets of information, which include guides and decision tools. So once you are retiring and we know that retirement date, I send in paperwork to VIA benefits to let them know what your HRA amount will be, and then they will send out a packet of information which will include guides and decision tools. So you can also go online if you want to the website, and listed there, myviabenefits.com/Westpath, and then you can set up your own profile and begin to do the enrollment process, and you can actually put in your prescription drugs there. You can compare prices. In the areas where you're planning to retire, you complete your enrollment online. So if you want to do it that way, you can do it all online, or you can call the licensed benefit advisor, and they will be objective and assist you in helping you select the appropriate plan via phone if you'd like to do that instead. Every year, there's kind of an open enrollment where if you're already on VIA benefits, you can go in and make changes to your plan. If you decide that this year your prescriptions plan was higher than you needed, it didn't offer what you needed, and you paid more out of pocket, you want to change that, you can go and do that in open enrollment, just like we do with Health Flex. So the licensed benefit advisors are your advocates all year long. So if there's anything that comes up, they're there to assist you. They're based on in the US. So the best thing to do is when there are any type of issues with any of your insurance, whether it's enrollment, premium payments, reimbursement issues, is to call VIA benefits. Call them, and when you reach someone, they will have a service either in Utah, Arizona, or Texas. So if you're not comfortable with the advisors you're working with because of personality conflict or can't understand them, you can ask to speak to someone else, or as always, you can just give me a call and we'll work with somebody to get you guys taken care of. But if there are any issues, you can definitely call anytime, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time. So this just kind of goes on how to contact VIA benefits prior to retirement, whether that be online or phone. It just kind of goes over how you can set up your profile online, what it's going to look like when you get started. You'll see that on there. It has that little getting started button. I've gone in there and I don't, just to kind of peek around, but you can just review the plans, enroll in plans. You can set it up to talk to somebody. So this is really, if you have the ability to go online and do VIA benefits that way, it's really nice because you can just click on that get starting button and it'll just walk you through it. After you create an account, you'll be asked for your personal information, which includes your name, your email address, your regular address, telephone number. Just know that VIA benefits never sells or distributes your personal information. So if you provide them with all of this information, it's just for them to be used in like their newsletters or to send out you Medicare related information. You can opt out of emails as well by just calling them and letting them know you'd like to opt out. So if you want in this particular spot, you can also, it says your prescription drugs details, you can enter all of that information in that tool. And then it helps you to find the right prescription drug plan to cover the drugs that you're currently taking. And you want to make sure that you do it when you have your prescription bottle in front of you, because it'll ask you the name of the drug, the dosage, the frequency. So all of the information you'll need to put in there. It will ask for your medical ID number on the effective dates for Medicare Parts A and Part B. So you'll want your Medicare card with you. Essential doctors are the ones you currently see. If you're interested in Medicare Advantage plans, which have a network, VIA benefits works to make sure that your doctors are in the network. So if they will double check that for you. And then all of this information is entered into your online account and it'll help you narrow down your options. While you're logged into your account, you can then set up direct deposit information as well. And so when you set that up, you just click on the view accounts and then funds and reimbursements and then reimbursement center, and VIA benefits, like I said, can walk you through that if you want, or I can help you. But you're going to want to put in your bank account to set up a automatic, what's the word I'm thinking of? Automatic reimbursement. That's the word I was thinking of. You want to set it up so that when we'll talk about this a little bit later, but when you have something, a premium or something that needs to get paid, it will get paid, you pay for it, but then you get reimbursed for it. So it'll come out of your account and then you get reimbursed back into your account. So you're going to want to put in your banking information, so they know what account to deduct it from and credit it to. It also takes time to set up all of this. So it can delay your first reimbursement if it's not set up quite a few weeks beforehand. So it could take up to 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks for them to get it all entered in and verified. So I would suggest the sooner than later to go in and set that up and put in your information so that you can have that ready if you want to do the automatic reimbursements. 100% of the carry. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Lori.
Is there any other options other than that automatic reimbursement? Does it have to go through your banking account?
Yep. So you can either do the automatic reimbursements or you can do it where you go online and print a form, and then you have to send that form and all the documentation to them, and then they will reimburse you that way.
Okay.
Yep. You don't have to do automatic reimbursements. You can set it up so that it's done by paper.
Okay.
Yep.
Who's doing the reimbursement? Where's that money coming from?
Your HRA. So your health
Okay.
reimbursement account, it'll come from that, the money that you get. And so, and we'll talk about that a little bit too, where if you don't use all of your health reimbursement, say in 20, you retire and you get your health reimbursement and it's not, you don't use all of it that year, it rolls over to the next year. So you can keep on using it. And some people have actually saved it and not get reimbursed because they want to use it for hearing aids or some kind of large expense that they have. So there is online enrollment, so you can shop and see all the different options there, that shop and compare. So if you call to enroll by phone, this is the process, and it will be roughly about a minimum of 45 minutes, and you can be on hold from anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. I'd like to say that's not necessarily true, but it's true, before you talk to a customer service rep. So don't hang up. It's just they have a lot of calls go in, and so they're just really busy. But you'll need to do some homework before you get on that call. So you'll have to get online and research what plans are available in your area just for planning on retiring, kind of give you an idea of what you're looking at. They'll help you walk through a lot of things, but if you know some of what you're looking for ahead of time, it helps make it a lot less, or it won't be as long of a phone call. You'll want your social security number, your Medicare card, and then you'll also the effective dates for your Medicare Part A and Part B. You won't be able to enroll unless you have these specific numbers. So if you want to do it over the phone, you'll have to have those things with you. And then to have your medications in front of you so that they can get the information off the bottles.
But if we're not retiring until July 1st and not have to do Part B yet, we can do it at that time, correct?
You can. Yep.
Okay.
You sure can, Laurie. Yeah. And you can actually, if you have your Medicare Part A information and your Social Security, all that kind of stuff, you can actually call and kind of get some things set up beforehand, Laurie, so that you, when it comes to that day that you're retiring, you have all these things already kind of set up so that it will be pretty seamless when you do retire. Then you can go right into it and you won't have any problems with it. So. Sometimes when you do call in to enroll via phone, you can typically talk to like 3 different people during the process. So it is nice if you go online first and just get your information in there, your basic information. So like your name, address, social security number, because they ask for those things each time a new person works with you. They have to ask you those verifying questions, but if they have it in their system already, they don't have to ask you every single question. They can just ask you one question and verify you're the right person. So, and that's only because of the privacy laws that this info is not written down. So that's why they have to ask every time. 7 to 10 days after your enrollment, you'll receive a mailing from Via Benefits called the Selection Confirmation Letter. And this letter will list the plans you've enrolled in. This letter cannot be used as a proof of payment or a proof of insurance. You'll receive a full plan detail in a separate mailing for that. But when you receive this document, it's a good idea to review it and make sure that you understand the information and that the information is exactly what you wanted to enroll in, so that somebody didn't mess it up somewhere along the way. Any questions? Any more questions on that, the Via Benefits? Because we're going to move into the HRA if you don't. Yeah.
Okay, just a word about that I've heard about the Medigap versus the Advantage plans. Is that the Advantage plans, if you change out of them, they can discriminate on pre-existing conditions.
That is true.
Medigap doesn't. So, it may look cheap up front, but as you get older, you may have problems. So
that is true, Marty.
That's
you're
what
right.
I've heard.
Yep, no, you're right. If you have the Advantage plan and you are having to have more health issues and you want to move out of it because you want to get a better health coverage, there can be where they don't cover you for things because of pre-existing conditions. So, and I'll take an example, and Leanna wouldn't mind me sharing this, but Roger had had to have a major surgery. And when they were looking at the plans that they wanted to do, he was like, he wanted to do the lesser plan, Advantage plan. And she's like, no, you never know what's going to happen. And so they went to the next one up, and she was so glad they did, because if they had done the other one, they would have needed to change, and he would have never been covered for what he went in for. So it isn't always wise to do, because it's cheaper, it's better. You really need to talk to Via Benefits and say, this is where I am. This is where my family history is, and where do I fit in best for the right plan for me? It's kind of like that longevity. If you think you're going to live 90 years, then it's good to do that. If you're not gonna, then it would not be wise. So what is an HRA? It's a tax advantaged account using a reimburse you for eligible healthcare expenses. And because we're working with Via Benefits, it also manages the money funded by the conference, and it's not subject to taxes, and it's for you to use for eligible premiums and healthcare expenses. So you'll be required to pay your premiums and healthcare expenses first, like I'd mentioned before, and then you can be reimbursed for those eligible expenses. So funds are not available on a debit card. There's no card you get. To receive your premium reimbursement when enrolling, you'll want to ask for your plan participant if you want to do the auto reimbursement, which is where you give them your bank account or savings account, and they move the money for you. And we track that every couple days. We get a notice from Via Benefits of who has used money out of their account or been reimbursed. And so we can track the amount of money that you have in your HRA and the amount of money being spent. So then we can help you if you have a question or wondering, what is in there, what's not in there. We can answer those questions for you. Kaylin and we track that every week. And so we keep it up to date so we know where everybody is. And just recently there was a charge on somebody's account that was out of the normal. And so we contacted that retiree and asked if they had something that they did, if they got hearing aids or if they did some kind of big purchase, and they hadn't. And what had happened is they took the Medicare Part B out of their reimbursement account instead of the conference had a grant for that for them. And so they should have been taking it from our conference fund instead of from their actual bank account fund. And so we can see those things because we get the reports. So if you want to, you can actually either do the auto reimbursement. So you can ask them to turn that on, and you'll have a claim form each year along with providing the correct documentation for insurance carriers. But you can, like I was talking to you, Laura, you can upload the document letters to your account for reimbursement. And other out-of-pocket expenses will not be part of the auto reimbursement feature. So if you have, so I've helped somebody that's in Via Benefits, and we went to the dentist, and those aren't part of the automatic auto reimbursement feature. So all we did is there's an app that you can put on your phone if you want. And so what I did is I just took a picture of her bill, and then I took a picture of her credit card statement or receipt, and I just sent it in through the app on my phone, and it was reimbursed within 2 hours. So that money was put back into her account for her to have out of the HRA. So you do have to have itemized receipts along with the form of payment that you used, a receipt for the form of payment when you fax it or mail it or send it. So
where do the HRA funds come from? Is that something we contribute out of our?
No, actually it is. There was a couple that many years ago, the Lynch family, it's a Lynch trust that we have with the Board of Pensions. And that trust was formed many years ago in this particular reason. They wanted clergy when they retired to have something for them, because at that time there wasn't anything for clergy. And so when they retired, they didn't have any benefits. And so they felt like they needed to do something to help clergy when they retire. And so that trust has been put in the hands of the Board of Pensions. And so the Board of Pensions actually monitors that money. And so we do it off of a average, and I'll show you that later, how you figure out what your HRA money will be for each year. But yeah, and it's not anything that anybody else has given. It's just we're very blessed that the market's been good. So the money that was put in there keeps on making enough money to help clergy ongoing. And for many years past all of us, it'll probably still be there. So.
Does it cover a spouse's expenses?
It does. So the HRA is set up for the clergy and their spouse. And so both have separate amounts, and it's based off of age and years of service. So it would be based off the clergy years of service and then the spouse's age. And that's how it's figured out. So they each have their own. However, it is combined when it's being used. So if you have one spouse that's using more than they need to, maybe it was a tough year and you have, the spouse is using a lot more of it and the clergy doesn't, then that money is combined. So it's okay. It doesn't have to be where, the spouse has to use hers and the clergy or his and the clergy uses theirs. It's all one big pot. And then when one of them passes away, that money, so if the spouse passes away, the clergy will still get theirs. If the clergy passes away, the spouse will get theirs plus some of the clergy's. So. They are available. Your HRA funds are available on the date of your retirement. So typically July 1st, or some people the end of the year. But for those 65 years and older retiring this year that remain a member of the Dakotas Conference, and that's part of the HRA, part of the HRA gifting is that where Board of Pensions has put out the resolution that it'll be gifted to those or given to those who are still a part of the Dakotas Conference. So if you are married and are both enrolled, you'll have a joint HRA account, like I was saying. So you both have the option of having your own. And they manage the fund levels for you. They manage where you're at on it. Via Benefits does. So if you have any questions about where you are, you can either call Kaylin or myself or Via Benefits. There's no beneficiary on the HRA. So when both have passed away, the funds are returned to the conference.
I have a question.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing is that, because Joel told me when we talked about this, there's either the option of surrendering my license or finding a home church to report to and et cetera, stay with the conference. So if I choose to surrender my license, I don't have access to HRA, is what you're saying.
Correct. Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Oops, sorry. And how this works is the process of how auto reimbursement works. Once you set it up, like I said, it gets returned to you on a monthly basis through direct deposit. It can be used for premiums, different plans that you have with Via Benefits. So it would be like in auto reimbursement, each time you pay your premium to the insurance company, they will send Via Benefits a notification of your payment, and then Via Benefits will then send your reimbursement in via direct deposit into your designated account with no automatic reimbursement. You do all the paperwork. So basically you're the one that has to get the information take the information from the insurance company. When you pay it, make a copy of what you paid it with, and then submit that invoice along with your payment to receive your reimbursement. Sorry, I got a little frog in my throat. So this kind of talks about some of the out-of-pocket expenses. it's to take care of your Medicare supplement or Advantage plan premiums, but you can also get reimbursed for other eligible medical expenses such as out-of-pocket medical copays, like I just said, dental, vision, hearing aids. If you have enough funds to cover all the expenses, or if you'd rather be reimbursed for these expenses, you can either, like I said, if they're out of pocket, you can decide whether, some people have decided they're just going to pay out of pocket for it because they're going to have a big expense later that they want to be covered by the HRA. So they just keep rolling it over. If you don't have something like that or feel like that will come up, then you can just get these out of pocket expenses covered. So health insurance premiums later on in the year, depending upon where your funding level is and how many other out-of-pocket expenses you submit, it could be that they're not covered. So if you feel like you want to wait with your out-of-pocket expenses, you can actually turn them in at the end of the year too. So if you paid an out-of-pocket expense in January, and then you want to make sure that all of your premiums are paid till the end of the year and you're not going to run out of money, you can save those expenses till the end of the year and then submit them then. As a matter of fact, we had a retired clergy that had medical expenses. They've been on the HRA plan for about 6 years, and they didn't realize they could put in the out-of-pocket expenses. And so we went back. You can go back all the way to the first day that you start on your HRA and turn in out-of-pocket expenses. So you can't obviously do it before you were on the HRA, but if you are on the HRA as of July 1st, 2024, and you decide that you're not going to put any out-of-pocket expenses in, and then it comes up to July 2028, and you have a lot of money in your HRA right now, and you don't have any other use for it, and you're like, man, I want to get those out-of-pocket expenses covered, you can go all the way back to July 1st of 2024 and submit those out-of-pocket expenses, as long as you have the original receipt and then your form of payment that you used. So this kind of talks about if you don't have auto reimbursement set up, how do you get those covered? There's 3 ways. 2 ways are the fastest. You can download the Via Benefits mobile app, sign up, follow the instructions on the account on how to do it. It takes like 5 seconds. If you don't want to do the mobile app, you can just go online to myviabenefits.com, sign in, and then follow the instructions to get it taken care of that way. There's like I said, the app, this is what it looks like when you get on. There's a little button at the bottom that says submit reimbursements, makes it really easy for you to just click it, take a picture of it with your smartphone, and then send it. And they will actually, if it's going to get denied, they come back and let you know it's denied as well. So you don't ever have to wonder if it's going through or not going through. It automatically shows you at the top there on that. The HRA that's available is $1,281. So you'll always know where you are with your HRA and what your available balance is. And then that little bell icon at the very top right, it's got different alerts that shows like different things that you have to attend to. If there's maybe there's something you need to check on a reimbursement status, or something's available and you need to look at it, you can do that right then and there. And that's what that is for. So, and it's available for both Android and Apple. So for online access on a laptop or a computer, after logging in, you'll click on Funds and Reimbursement tabs, and then you'll select Reimbursement Center. And then it comes up with access to view your full funding, the history, the status of your reimbursements. So you can do this if you want to check your status on an ongoing basis. And then from the reimbursement center, you can also set up direct deposit or submit receipts, scan and upload your receipts. You can manage your communication preferences under notifications. So if you don't want them to be notified all that often, or if you want to know more, you can reduce the amount of funding related paper mail that you receive. So if you are like, I don't need any more paper mail, you can opt out of some things there too. So, and then you can register to receive mobile text notifications. So if there's different things that you want to be notified, like every time something comes, you get a deposit, or every time something is comes out of your account, you can get a mobile text notification for it. And you can just choose to do that when you go online. Do you want a 5-minute break, or do you want to run into the next slides? This is just the form. After I'll show you the form here. There's no really notes. It's just for you to look at so that you can see what a reimbursement form looks like. It's paper incorporated. It has everything on there that you need to know and include for your premium expenses or out-of-pocket medical expenses. So if there's no auto debit, you would have to do that for your premiums and your out-of-pockets. So, and that's just kind of for you to take a peek at. And they're easy. They're right there on in your account, and it'll have your name on it because it's going to be out of your account. So easy enough. Do you want a 5-minute stretch break, or do you want to just continue on into the HRA funding requirements for the retirees? Keep going. Excellent. I love it. All right. So clergy must be a member of the Dakotas annual conference, and currently you must have a minimum of 14 years or more full-time years of service in direct conference connection in order to qualify for funding from the conference for the HRA funding. And so the 14 years was just changed this year. It was going up 14, 18, but now it's just 14 years of connection to qualify. And you must be enrolled in either a Medicare supplement or Medicare Advantage plan through VIA benefits. So the prescription coverage through VIA benefits is not required to be eligible for funding, but the conference funding goal is the minimum of 14 years. So you do have to have that in. So be a part of VIA benefits, you must be either a Medicare supplement or Advantage plan. If you just do prescription plan, you don't have to, it's not required for you for funding. Oh. As you can see in this slide, the schedule of how the years of service will roll out. Pensions, as it shows right here, like I just said, 14 years or more. We actually were pensions was looking at increasing it every 2 years, going from 24 on, and we just decided to go back to where it used to be because it was 16 years last year, and now we went back to 14 years, and they're going to keep it there. So the Board of Pensions wants to make sure they're taking care of clergy before their years of service are 18, 20, and beyond. So funding is based on the individual's age, their years of service, and then going forward, the number of participants that are actually in the HRA affects it as well. The age was used because most people's medical expenses increase with age. And then the years of service was used because it has been one of our values to provide greater benefits to those with more years of service. So the Conference Board of Pensions determines the funding level each year. The average HRA to participants that was in 2023 is $3,795. And clergies must be a member of the Dakotas. As I said, that's something that the resolution that was done last year. So this year, the chart shows what a full year of HRA funding would approximately be. Those that retire in July, if eligible, would receive half of this amount. So it's prorated. So if you look on there, you can find where your years of full-time service is, and then the age as of January 1st. And so in there, you just go up from where your age is roughly, and that just goes in 5-year increments and made it easier than to put every year in there. So, and like I said, if you retire in September, then it would be prorated for October, November, and December, September, October, November, and December. So it's not a full year if you aren't retiring January 1st. The conference premium grant funding is available to retirees who's been as it has been in the past. You can just contact me if you're interested in getting a grant. Each year in the fall, you receive a letter telling you what your HRA funding will be for the following year. And at that time, if you see what your funding is and you know where you're going to be as far as financially and you need a little assistance, you can actually send me an email, give me a call, whatever you want to do, and I can send you out a grant application for the retirees. And the Board of Pensions actually has changed it so that each retiree can get $4,200. So if you're married, it would be $4,200 per person. And then for the spouse and clergy. So it could be 8,400 that you would get in a grant. And that actually is just approved by our conference benefits committee and which are a couple board members and myself. And then we take it to the full board for ratification for them to just know what we've done. So if you are interested in that, just let me know, because I would be more than happy to send that out. We have the funds available and we'd love to help you out. If clergy are retired and eligible to receive it, the HRA then return to work at the same church as previously appointed to during active service. The IRS may deem the HRA as a group health plan provided by the individual's current employer and seek to impose penalties. So currently we have somebody that has retired and they went to work currently at their same charge that they were at, the same churches, and we are accruing their HRA. We save it, it's sitting there, it's waiting for them, but they have not been able to use it because they are employed by the same church that they retired from. And the penalty is $100 per day for each day of non-compliance for each individual impacted. So the issue could cost us at the conference as much as $36,500 per year. And it's applied to the spouses as well. So if it's a married couple, we would incur the $100 per day per person. So that is one thing when you are retiring. If you're appointed to the same church, your HRA will be held by the conference and it'll sit there and accumulate every year, but it won't be able to be used until you are appointed to a different church. If you're a retiree who has TRICARE coverage, you'll want to check with your TRICARE representative before enrolling in VIA benefits, because TRICARE rules are secondary when paying on claims. Therefore, if you have any other plans, such as plan through VIA benefits, it may cause your TRICARE coverage to be void. So you want to make sure your HRA funding is only available if enrolled in the plan through VIA benefits. If you decide not to participate because you have TRICARE, you'll be asked to opt out from the Dakotas conference via benefits. So that's it for the HRA. Questions? We are currently, I'm just going to let you know, I am currently working with legal at Westpath and our legal counsel, our chancellor, and some other conferences, because we're trying to figure out if it's if we'd be available to maybe look into how much the IRS, if it's something that we could, what's the word I want to say, if we can somehow help our clergy that are serving the same church have access to some of their HRA funds, and not be out the HRA funds and the ability to help them with their financial medical bills. So we're looking into that. I don't know what the outcome is going to be yet, but you can just know that that's something that we're checking into to see what we can do to try to help them that are retired and needing some medical assistance. So
I did have a question.
Yeah.
I've been serving the conference for almost 14 years now, but the last 7, only 3/4 time. Does that mean I will not be qualified for the retiree HRA?
It's 3/4 and full-time that we require you to serve to get into for the HRA.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. This is, I don't know if any of you with HealthFlex, are you familiar with Virgin Pulse? Have you used it? Okay. So Virgin Pulse and Blueprint for Wellness are available to all retirees. So it's still available. Anybody that was on HealthFlex that's already using it, you can still use it. You can still do the incentives. You can still do the Blueprint for Wellness at the annual conference, or you can even do it on your own. You don't get an incentive for the Blueprint for Wellness, but you do get to know where you sit on your health, all of your labs. So that's the nice incentive for still doing your Blueprint for Wellness. And I just want you to let know, Virgin Pulse at the beginning of the year, July 1st, is going to turn into Personify Health. and you will have to do a new login, and it'll be a new app that you have to use. But once you're in it, it's the same information as what Virgin Pulse was. So it's just the outside look is different, but Jody at Westpath confirmed that the inside look is going to be similar to that of Virgin Pulse, where you have all the same incentives, you have all the same options in there, and you'll still get all the rewards, and they'll be in there. So,
do our rewards roll over into the new program?
Yep, that's what Jody said. You'll still have your rewards. You're not going to lose them. So whether it's you use them on a Virgin Pulse, nobody verified whether it's going to be in Persona Fi Health or if it's going to be in Virgin Pulse, but you still have those rewards. You won't lose any rewards. Long-term care insurance, because retirees are living longer, there's long-term care insurance that can be a good investment for the future. It would be a good idea to research plans to make sure that they will cover what is needed. So retirees, if not really sure what kind of long-term care you're going to need, like it was mentioned earlier, the long-term care for being in assisted living, or if you're going to be in a nursing home, or what you think it's going to be. If there's any kind of long-term care, there is available, and that'll be with VIA benefits as well. You can talk to them. These are just a list of the top 5 companies that have good ratings as far as the long-term care insurance. I kind of took it off the web to find out who they're saying is the best and why. And so the best overall was Mutual of Omaha. National Guardian Life had the best options. A good one for organizations for Christians was Thrivent. Financially, New York Life was good. And then just Northwestern Mutual just has a good reputation and a strong financial backing to them. So it's, you choose what you want if you're doing long-term care, and you can do the research and find out which one's best for you. But these are just a few that I found. And then the last day to use your MRA funds is June 30th. So you can submit these claims up to 90 days after retirement. So like your FSA and all of those, you have 90 days after retirement to submit all of your claims. So you don't have to, you can't add anything more, with your MRA, there's nothing added to it or done with it after June 30th if you're retiring on July 1st, but you can submit claims up to 90 days afterwards. You have to use your active HRA and HSA funds. You can use them for any of those options: medical supplemental premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, dental expenses, vision, hearing. So you want to keep your, they're not WageWorks anymore, health equity cards. You want to keep that because that you can keep on using until it's empty, until there's nothing in it. And I don't know if you got a notice, but they are now combining all of the HSA, MRA, FSA, all of those funds into one card now. So you'll get one card and you'll have it a purple card, and it'll have all of those funds on there, and they're not going to be separate anymore where you have to go in and do it online. Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, I was just going to talk a little bit about long-term care insurance. My wife and I got some, quite a few years ago when we were in our 50s. It was quite affordable then. The premiums, and they could be combined into, one person used 4 years, one person used 2 years. It was a 6-year combined maximum. At the time, North Dakota had an income tax that we had to pay, and it was deductible from that. I mean, it was a credit. Well, North Dakota's changed their rules. We don't get that credit anymore. We're under the threshold to even pay a North Dakota tax now, income tax, and the premiums have gone up considerably, so that it's not cheap. Mm-hmm. And I understand that through some financial institutions, it's combined with life insurance as well as long-term care insurance, and there's some flexibility there. So people might want to look into that. I think we're through John Hancock, which qualified under the North Dakota rules for tax credit because they were so good. So they may not be in the top 5, but they're probably okay. So,
That's awesome.
I polled a number of people, including some pastor friends, and they said, "Oh, we wish we had it." And I worked at a nursing home, and I knew how much it costs, and so I got it. But even the coverage we have is not going to pay for a month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the monthly payout will not cover the full bill. So it's long-term care is a real, it's an expensive thing, whichever way you look at it. So that's just been my experience. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Marty. I appreciate your input. Does anybody have any other questions, or I'm going to show you the last slide, and the only thing that we have next is if you have anybody that is going to be somebody that's going to be retiring at 65 and have a spouse, or if they're going to retire before 65. I have some slides for that. If anybody falls into that category, I can show you those if you want to know how you go about staying on HealthFlex and how you can get some grants to help you pay for HealthFlex, because the premiums, when you're pre-65 and you're retiring, you don't get the premium credit that you get when you're active clergy for your HealthFlex. So we have grants at the Board of Pensions that can help pay for that. But if nobody's going to be pre-65, I think that pretty much ends our slideshow for today. Any questions from anybody else? I know it's been a long day. I appreciate you guys sticking in there and hanging in.
Joanne, this is Tracy. I do have one question Kevin wanted me to ask. And it's not on like health benefits, but he had been told quite a few years ago that when clergy retires, the conference has like a grant or a payout. They pay to the clergy to help pay for housing. Is that true, or is that something that they used to do and no longer do?
I don't know of a grant for housing, but we do have that housing exclusion that actually Todd talked about in the first presentation, that you can use to help you get a tax break instead of paying, $24,000 in taxes, or being taxed on $24,000, you'd be taxed on $4,000 because you could do $20,000 in your housing exclusion. But I don't know of any grant that we have that would help you with your housing.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Anything else? Are you guys all out of questions? Well, I appreciate you, Todd. Thank you for your time too for today.
You are welcome.